Good evening and welcome to yet another episode of the AFC East Bros podcast. Kyle here flying solo right now for the current time being. But with that being said, I am joined by Tyson at the Bling Dynasty on Twitter, at the Bling Dynasty on YouTube, who is a New England Patriots fan, if you couldn't understand by his name, because they're the only team in the division that has bling to speak of, at least in recent years. It's been quite some time since those other teams have achieved some bling, and it's not like you would not consider the other teams to be powerhouses in recent years. So obviously the Bling Dynasty, New England Patriots, joined by Tyson right now. And Tyson, I mean, how would you describe yourself? Would you describe yourself as a filmmaker? I mean, because I checked out your one video, Tom Brady 201 wins, and I was darn impressed by that.
Well, that's okay. Well, that's just a hobby. I do a YouTube hobby. I make highlight videos. I have some videos that get 100,000 views, million views. It depends on, the circumstance, whatever. I just make Patriots fan videos talking about the Patriots, but I usually do a lot of video editing, Patriots highlights, such and such like that, like mixing like movie trailers with the Patriots. That's basically what I do. And so
then did you just teach yourself how to do that on your own, or did you go to school?
I went to Boston College for video editing, graphic design. But in my free time, well, not in my free time, but my job, I'm a cameraman for Vice. I also work with Vice. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Vice.
I've heard a little bit about it. I know they're really up and coming.
Yeah, well, they're featured on HBO now. They got a new contract with HBO. So, I usually travel out the country a lot, usually not during football season. I'm away for months at a time, doing different documentaries, stories about other countries and stuff like that. So that's basically what I do, when I'm not like having my hobby on YouTube.
It's pretty awesome. And listen, I know the AFC East Bros, we spend a good amount of time highlighting the work of other, bloggers, podcasters around the AFC East. So I know that sometimes when I say things, you guys might be thinking, oh, it's another guy that he's recommending. No, listen, these videos are good. I mean, literally, Tom Brady 201 wins. He went through every single one of Tom Brady's games and victories in his career and showed at least, like a half a second of footage. It was pretty awesome. Extremely well done. So you really should go check out the Bling Dynasty on YouTube. I know we don't really have a great presence on YouTube as of yet, as we've only been doing that as of recently, but our audio listeners, check out the Bling Dynasty on YouTube. I'll make sure to go blast some of that stuff out on Twitter. But let's talk about your New England Patriots, Tyson. So you guys had a big win last night. Baltimore Ravens, a team that's given you fits in the past. What do you make of that game?
It was a lot of – I was worried about the game because, obviously Gronk not being there. We've had trouble in the past moving the ball without Gronk there, and Amendola's also hurt. I was skeptical because, the Ravens had the number one defense in the league. But to be completely honest with you, as soon as Jimmy Smith got hurt, their number one corner, it completely opened up the entire secondary.
Yeah.
Because they were playing a lot of man coverage. And as soon as Jimmy Smith was gone, it basically just collapsed their entire secondary. And Brady just took advantage. It kind of reminded me of when we beat Seattle in the Super Bowl. And I can't remember the name of the defender that got hurt.
Lane. It was Jeremy Lane.
Exactly. When he got hurt, you noticed how everything just opened up in that secondary. And I don't know if the Ravens defense is overrated or what, but it really showed that if you lose one of your best players on defense, it could definitely destroy your entire defense, kind of like what happened to Carolina with Josh Norman. But, last night, I think what makes this Patriots team so dangerous, a lot of people don't talk about, is our running game. And the fact that we can have LeGarrette Blount and Deion Lewis in the backfield, and LeGarrette Blount's having the best season of his career, the fact that we now have a running game, something that we haven't had in years, it doesn't put as much pressure on Tom Brady to throw it, 30, 40 times a game, even though he can do that. But if we keep the defense honest, knowing that, we're liable to run the ball at any time and we can rush it for 5-6 yards a carry with LeGarrette Blount, this is kind of how dangerous our offense has been this season, the reason why our offense has been so good. But and another thing, one more thing about that game is our defense is highly underrated. I don't see anybody ever giving props to our defense, where I think we're like the number 2 team as far as points allowed. and I know a lot of people, when we traded Jamie Collins to Cleveland, a lot of people thought that would completely just, that would make our defense even worse than what people thought it was. And it showed yesterday when Chan McClellan blocked that field goal that he can just do just pretty much anything that he's just as good as Jamie Collins when it comes to, being versatile in the linebacker position. And he's not Jamie Collins, but he's
not even close. I'm agreeing with everything you're saying. He fills the role. Was crazy.
He can still fill the role, but the thing is, we got Hightower, and he's the quarterback of our defense.
Yeah, that's a fair point. But listen, I'm agreeing with you. Like, I hyped the Patriots defense up a lot in the offseason. I drafted them. I don't play much fantasy, but I do fantasy leagues, and I like the New England Patriots defense. I drafted them in both leagues. I took them, high for taking a defense. I guess I prioritized taking them. I like that defense. I felt that they had playmakers all over on every side of the ball, every different level of the defense. You got guys in the secondary. I thought Butler's, close to a top 10 corner, if not that. Obviously, Logan Ryan showed that he's an adequate number 2 last year. McCourty's definitely one of the best single high safeties in the league. Patrick Chung, take it for what it's worth. He's good in that role. Didn't succeed in Philly, but you ask him to be a box safety, he can do it with the best. Then you had those 2 linebackers coming in this year, and I couldn't think of a single tandem that was better in the entire league. And then you look at the defensive line. Sheard has disappointed a little bit this year, but I still think he's not getting enough credit as he deserves. Alan Branch has been darn good this entire year. It's crazy to think that at this stage of his career, he's probably having his best year. Mm-hmm. Then you have some nice role players, and I don't know why you guys haven't played Trey Flowers more.
I was just about to say that. I was about to say the reason why Jabbar Shear's not on the field is because of Trey Flowers.
I get that, but even like earlier in the season,
Yeah, I know.
So, but and Malcolm Brown, has he lived up to the first round pick? Yeah, I mean, you guys got him right at the end of the first round. He shows flashes here or there, but he's still a darn good player that you'd like to have on your team. So, I like the New England Patriots defense. I really do. And what is the single most important thing for defense? Forget yards. Forget sacks.
Keep him out the end zone. I've been saying that all season long.
Keeping him out of the end zone. Points allowed. It's points allowed. And the Patriots are always pretty good at that. Even those – when people would trash the Patriots defense a couple years ago, 2011 and stuff, they made it to the Super Bowl, but they had an all-time bad defense in terms of passing
yards allowed.
but it's yards, though. And I always go back, Blake Bortles accumulated tons of yards last year, garbage time passing yards. What does that mean? Same thing Ryan Tannehill, kept playing fourth quarter catch-up. Teams, they'll play. They'll give you the middle of the field. Go ahead, throw in the middle of the field. Pad your stats. We don't care. So, but it's a different thing when you stop teams when they get in the red zone, and points allowed is a single important thing on a defense. And the New England Patriots, not so much this year. Mm-hmm. They've always been very turnover worthy, and I think they're starting to turn it up a little bit. They obviously had a couple against the Jets in that close game that they had. The turnovers ended up being the difference in that game. So they're starting to force more of those, and I think that you'll see more of those into the playoffs. Shane McClellan, not impressed at all. I like – that was nice when he hurdled. That was nice, hurdling and blocking the field goal, but I was watching the guy get exposed, numerous times. You really don't see him out there, and then when you do, who was it? It was Gio Bernard was, gashing him down the sideline. Gio Bernard gave a nice double move to him.
He's not a really good cover corner. And to be honest with you, Jamie Collins wasn't really that great of a cover linebacker either, my bad. A cover linebacker either, because Jamie Collins gave up, I think, 2 touchdowns in the AFC Championship game last season.
Owen Daniels.
So, I mean, Jamie Collins, people want to hype up Jamie Collins. Jamie Collins, he gave up some big plays too last season. So let's not crown Jamie Collins as this great linebacker. I'm still upset that he left. I think just the culture that Belichick has put in, it defies the odds that he can keep on getting away with this type of stuff.
I know, right?
I don't think any other coach could get away with the type of stuff that Belichick does. But it works, and it's hard to argue against it. So, I mean, that's pretty much a lot of Patriots fans' mindset.
It is crazy. And, the Patriots, obviously, they draft. They have so many draft picks every year, and they constantly are bringing in their own guys. They're developing them. One guy who seems to not be developing so well right now
Cyrus Jones.
Is none other than Mr. Cyrus Jones.
I want him off the team.
You want him off the team already? You want
If it wasn't for Cyrus Jones, we blow the Ravens out. We blow the Ravens out. Oh, my, you going to show this play?
Yeah, I'm going to show the play. And those of you that did not watch Monday Night Primetime National Stage, Cyrus Jones had a big muff, which let the Ravens right back into the game. Let's go ahead and let's play it.
Jerry Rosberg, the special teams coach. Foot kicks it low, end over end. And Jones, that might have hit his foot. Boy, he's had one catastrophe after another. The Ravens are on, and whose ball is it? It's Baltimore's ball. Boy, they keep putting him back there in part because they don't have other options, and he just keeps struggling on the punt returns. That's total carelessness by Jones. In a 20-point ball game, get away from the ball. Credit Cook, the punter, for kicking an oddball punt to the rookie Jones. He knew he had been struggling. He made a terrible decision.
Oh, my gosh. Look at the look on his face. Look at the look on Brady's face.
Really getting killed about is not really the fumble. It's the effort after it hit his foot. He really was so nonchalant of trying to dive on the football. Like, he had a chance to dive on the football. It's kind of like what Cam Newton did in the Super Bowl, not diving for the fumble. That's what really pisses a lot of Patriots fans off, is the fact that he didn't even really attempt to dive for the ball.
What is he trying to do? Is he trying to stop it with his foot? Like,
I really don't know.
Like when you play soccer, like, one of the ways you can stop the ball is like putting your foot on top.
This is not the first time Cyrus Jones has done some. I don't remember. I can't remember what week it was, but Belichick he was ejected 1 week for I think it was unsportsmanlike conduct.
I think that was against Cincinnati when he was going forth with Andrew Hawkins. Hawkins was burning him.
I don't know if you have the graphic of it or the video, but he gets burnt on another play.
I have some of those plays. Not from this past game, but when Hawkins was working him in the end.
Yeah. Well, he's been getting burnt all season long. And this is another thing. This is the reason why we drafted Cyrus Jones. It has a lot to do with Nick Saban. Nick Saban and Belichick are buddies, and I'm pretty sure that, that's why he drafted Hightower. I'm pretty sure he spoke to Saban about Cyrus Jones. I guess Saban gave him the nod on him, and he ended up drafting him, and we needed another slot linebacker / special teams player, and he's been neither special teams or a good corner this season. He's been awful. And he's just a rookie. I know that. He's just a rookie, but he's literally the equivalent of Stephen Ridley on defense. He's basically the equivalent of Stephen Ridley, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gets cut this week. I just wouldn't be surprised.
Wow. Already you get – and listen, it's not to make no mistake about it. I get it. He was at the end of the second round, but in effect, this was your first pick in the draft.
It was our own first pick of the draft. You're right, because we didn't have a first round last season.
But, we've seen players struggle under Belichick in their first year and eventually develop. You're the Patriots fan. Can you think of a player that struggled mightily the first year and ended up turning into being a nice player in future years?
Well, this is a tough one.
It's
I
just
wanted Aaron Dobson to be that guy, but he just never could. He never could catch on. Basically, that questions just keep on reminding me of all the players that struggled in rookie year and just turned out to be nothing. I can just name so many draft busts that Belichick drafted, especially at the receiver position. But I'm watching these graphics right now. He's just been getting burnt all season long. I can't think of a player that struggled this badly as a rookie. I really can't, as far as on the defensive side of the ball.
And the thing is,
Razai Dowling.
But he had the injuries, though. That's not been Cyrus's problem. It's the thing is, when you draft Cyrus, you're drafting a versatile player. Not only can this guy be a corner for you, but this guy's also supposed to be this versatile top returner in the nation type of dude, and he's neither of that right now. This guy can't
even return a kickoff. He can't even hold on to the ball when I think it's his fourth fumble. If I'm not mistaken, I think he fumbled it. That was his fourth fumble last night, as far as on the kickoffs or punt returns. So.
And Tyson, it goes much deeper than just the games too. This is a practice thing, and being playing the game of football myself. I really succeeded as a football player when I was playing offensive and defensive line, but I started off playing receiver actually, and I'll never forget. I dropped a touchdown pass early on in the game. We would have taken a 7-0 lead if I caught this touchdown pass. We were playing this team called Phillipsburg, who's a really good team. And then we ended up getting crushed like 42-0. And I remember people talking to me, my teammates supposed to have my back. They're telling me on the bus ride home, oh man, if you caught that ball, that could have gotten us momentum and we could have potentially went on and won that game. And whether or not that's true, which I don't think it is, that played an effect on my psyche. And Cyrus Jones is one of these guys that he's on Twitter, he's hearing all the whispers around him, and he's letting it get to him. And
it's kind of, you know what it is? You know what's also kind of funny is that his Twitter bio picture and his Twitter background is faded out black. And kind of like how he's been his entire season, just non-existent.
Wow, that's pretty funny. Yeah, I mean, like, and what happened last night too is he was gone before reporters could even talk to him. He wanted absolutely nothing to do. And like, they say one good thing if you're a player is just face the music, own up to your mistakes.
Yeah,
this guy's not wanting to do that.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that he didn't speak to the media. The thing is, when we won that game, that's basically like, yeah, we understand that Cyrus Jones messed up, and he basically changed the momentum of the game. Which, if Ravens score on that possession where they kicked the field goal at the end, they could have easily won that game and stole it from us. You know what I'm saying? So, I'm pretty sure he's going to get heat for it this week. You know how Belichick rolls. So
yeah, I mean, I don't see how you activate him this week. You have to deactivate him.
He's probably not going to get cut, but I see him probably getting benched for a game or two,
Yeah, I can't see you cutting a second-round pick this early. He's definitely, in my opinion, he's on the team next year too. After that, we'll see. But
Belichick is ruthless. I mean, we did cut what was the receiver we cut in the Super Bowl leading up, like a day before the Super Bowl?
Before this most recent Super Bowl?
With the high top. No, he was 2011 Super Bowl against the Giants.
It's slipping my mind at the moment.
He was I think he was a receiver for the Browns at one point too. He had a high top.
Yeah, it's slipping my mind at the moment. If you could tell me a little bit about his game, then maybe I could think of it. But
he was basically just a receiver. He wasn't anything special. But
that's what I'm saying, though. He's not a second-round pick. This guy was your first pick in the draft. I just can't see you parting ways with him that early. But
I don't see it happening either. But you just never know with Belichick. I'm telling you, you just can't be surprised if he pulls something like that out.
That's so true. So, I mean, in my mind, Gary and I, my co-host, we've been saying this since the beginning of the year. The Patriots – actually, you know what? Gary did waver for a little bit, for like a couple weeks. The Patriots are the best team in the league. I have seen nothing all season to convince me otherwise. I know people were hyping up the Oakland Raiders, and I saw on your Twitter feed that you were just saying they were a bunch of phonies. There's nothing to be worried about there. I'm in complete agreement with you. I even said, listen, there are other teams in the AFC that you'd rather play before the Raiders. That you would rather not play before the Raiders. You'd rather play. You would rather not play Denver. You'd rather not play Kansas
City. On the road. Let's get that out the way. On the road. Going to Arrowhead in the AFC Championship game would be a nightmare. I really do think so.
I said the same exact thing last week. Same exact thing. So let's also think about it in terms of the NFC. Because the Patriots, it's all about Super Bowls, to be honest.
Right, obviously.
I mean, let's talk about the 2000 – I mean, you as a Patriots fan, 2007 season, I mean, you probably have to look at that as a failure. I know you guys came close to.
It's kind of funny because they finally took the banner down this season.
Oh wow!
2007, 16-0 regular season. They had that banner up for a long time, and we finally got Robert Kraft to take that thing down. The fact that we're not the Colts, because Colts, they hang up second place banners, and we're not about that. So, yeah, obviously, as a Patriots fan, it's Super Bowl or bust. If you don't win the Super Bowl, it's a failure. And it's like that every season. And I don't know what other fan base that has that type of mindset every single season for the past, 10 years or plus years or whatever like that.
So who's the biggest threat to the Patriots then? I have to believe that you think the Patriots are going to win it all.
If the playoffs is a whole different monster. I can point back to the 2010 season when we went 14-2 and lost in the first round to the Jets. Things happen. We lost to the Ravens in the 2012 AFC Championship game at home. Anything can happen in the playoffs. But the last two seasons, the number one seed has gone to the Super Bowl in both years from both conferences. But if you think about a threat this season out of the NFC, it's hard to tell, man. I still think the Cowboys are. I still think the Cowboys are a threat. I mean, they had one bad game, but although they are having a little controversy right now at the quarterback position, which is funny, but I'm not gonna lie. I'm still afraid of Seattle. I know they got their butts handed to them, but I'm not gonna lie. Seeing them in another Super Bowl would just it's just something about the Seahawks that just scares me. I don't know what it is. It's definitely their defense, but they play us close all the time. But other than that, there really is no NFC team that scares me.
Yeah, we're seeing eye to eye. To me, I said it a couple weeks ago. Seattle is probably the only other team that I would call elite, and that was a couple weeks ago after they smacked the Patriots up. But now you lose Earl Thomas, and you have back-to-back really.
That's another thing. They lost Earl Thomas.
I mean, Earl Thomas for them, he completely changes the way they play defense.
It's like how Gronk is to us. Completely changes the way we play offense.
I would agree with that, and it's interesting that those guys went back and forth on Twitter and kind of praised each other for their game. But Earl Thomas, I mean, Seattle runs they're not going to confuse you with what they do on defense. It's cover one, it's cover three, single high safety, and nobody does it better than Earl Thomas in terms of getting sideline to sideline. You lose him, you just can't replace him. So that is going to change their dynamic on defense tremendously. So we'll see what happens. But if I'm a Patriots fan, I'm still confident, but the Gronk injury is going to make me a little bit concerned. But
last night Brady threw for 406 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he did make one mistake in the end zone. That's un-Brady. Like he usually has those from time to time, but I mean, to throw 406 yards against number one defense in the league, and Martellus Bennett. I mean, at least we have one tight end, that can. He's not Gronk, but
he's darn good tight end. But let's chill on the number one defense talk because we were just talking about this. That's in terms of yards.
You're right.
Yards. I mean, the Ravens don't. I mean, look, I think they have a nice defense. I think they have a good amount of talent as well, but they haven't shown it with consistent. We ran all over the field on them, and I know that's not saying much being the New York Jets, but they've definitely been inconsistent. So I know that the yards say that they're number one, but I think that there are other defenses.
I think the Chiefs' defense would scare us in the playoffs.
Chiefs' defense.
I'm not really afraid of them at home, but like I said, if it's in Arrowhead, I really think we lose that game. I can't believe it, but I really think there's something about Arrowhead that scares me, and it happened on Monday Night Football a couple years ago when everyone pronounced us dead. That there's home field advantage is huge for them. If they can get home field, if we slip up and they steal home field advantage from us, and they host a championship game in Arrowhead against us, that's not going to be an easy game at all.
Oh, no, not at all. Anyway, it was great for you joining us, Tyson, and get to some other callers. You can follow Tyson at The Bling Dynasty on Twitter. YouTube channels, The Bling Dynasty. Really, really, really high praise and recommendation for me. I can't say that I'm extremely big into like highlight tapes and films and stuff like that, but your stuff is really, really good. And I'll tweet out some links to that stuff. So appreciate you joining me, man.
Okay, man. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Okay, bye.
All right, we'll get to the next call, and we'll get to Mr. Brian Peckinpah. What's up, Brian?
Hey, man. How are you?
I'm pretty good. What's going on?
Nothing much. I'm calling to say hi. It's been, 4 weeks or so since you heard from me?
It has been. You've been working. Shoot, I mean, what is it still fishing season over there?
Yeah, I'm not doing the crabbing right now, but I mean, probably not until maybe January I'll start fishing again. Right now I'm just kind of doing some offloading, some freight.
Okay, good stuff. Now, we got to talk about your boy, Ryan Tannehill. I mean, he's back in the favor of Dolphins fans. It's so interesting how the pendulum can swing in this league. Just a couple weeks ago after the Cincinnati game, everyone said, we got to move on. Tannehill's not the answer. He's not the future, including yourself. You're sending me all these graphics. The main reason us Dolphins fans hate Tannehill, his third down numbers. The past couple weeks, Ryan Tannehill, he's had a couple comebacks. He's had a couple nice stat lines, couple just laser throws, deep passes down the field. And then we saw last week, the players love him. They come to his side after he gets injured, and now he is injured. But Brian, I got to ask you now, I know that you must have been somewhat concerned about the injury. You obviously want to go to the playoffs. Obviously, you think he's better than Matt Moore. But has your opinion over the last couple of weeks on Ryan Tannehill changed because of the way he's been playing?
Man, that's a hard one. Has it changed? Not a whole lot, but I am impressed. I guess the reason why I say a whole lot is because a lot of his stat lines are from bad defenses. I mean, let's be real there. I mean, a lot of teams he has beat up on, whether Niners, the Rams, even San Diego's defense ain't that great. his stat lines looked great against bad teams.
Mhm.
I mean, we can't just pretend that like he did amazing against some stellar defenses, but at the same time, he has been playing a lot more better on his decision making, which I have been impressed with. But I don't really think it's going to be a big fallout between him and Matt Moore either. I think
Wow.
Matt Moore, I don't, and Matt Moore does. I think Matt Moore has a better arm in the sense of his decision making when he wants to throw that ball. But Ryan Tannehill has a lot better of his athleticism, so it is a different type of style of quarterbacking.
Wait,
And
you
what's
think Moore has a
interesting,
better arm or better decision making?
he's more willing to throw. He's more willing to pull the trigger than Tannehill would be. And
But is that
so
necessarily a good thing, though?
It isn't, but I mean, it can be both. I mean, you can look at it in the sense of he's willing to just throw it in there and not worry about that pick. And sometimes it's a hit or miss. Like Favre did that his whole career. He was considered a gunslinger because I'm not comparing them as quarterbacks, but that's how he played. He just went at it and fought, than being scared and hesitant to throw that ball. So, and also Gase is an aggressive aggressive coach, and Moore's an aggressive coach. So I'd like to see that tandem, see how that's going to work together.
Certainly going to be interesting. And I don't know if you've heard anything else like that. Does Ryan Tannehill have any shot to come back? Like if the Dolphins make the playoffs? I mean, like, are we hearing that? As far as I'm concerned with sprains, they're really not a huge injury. I mean, people come back from those in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, but a lot of people are getting confused because I was reading up a lot on that, and a lot of people are getting confused with sprain is technically a tear. A lot of people don't realize a sprain is a tear, and especially where it's at. A lot of people think, oh, it's not a tear. No, it's a partial tear. That's a lot of things. And he could possibly be back for if we went to playoffs. That's still kind of unlikely.
Yeah, that's what I'm
hearing
seeing.
2 to 3 weeks.
Sports doctors online, they're saying the same thing.
Yeah, I've been hearing 2 or 3 weeks, and then I say maybe playoffs. I mean, we can't really project that. We never know how somebody's actually going to heal when it comes to that type of thing. I mean, everybody heals differently. I mean, he is a gamer. He is a tough guy. I mean, he hasn't missed a game in, 4 or 5. This is the 5th season.
I think 77 straight games. 77. He's got his own little Eli Manning, Tom Brady type of streak going up right now.
One thing really interested me was when Tannehill got hurt, and there was a quote from Matt Moore saying that how he loved him and that the team needs him. I just thought that was really cool that he said that. I thought it was really cool that the team has that camaraderie now, that we need each other. It's not just, oh, I get my chance. It's we need you. So I think that's a really awesome thing for this team. Then 2 years ago, we wouldn't have had that. Last year, we wouldn't have had that with Brent Grimes and the Nico thing. They wouldn't have said it. Should have been talking. You know what I mean?
You're a big fan of Miko Grimes, aren't you?
Oh, no whatsoever. She has me blocked. So.
Oh yeah, you're part of the club too. It's an esteemed club. It's an esteemed club, man. You should be honored. Wear it like a badge of honor for sure.
I am concerned about Mike Pouncey though. That's my biggest thing I'm concerned about. I am really close to looking for a replacement for him. Not necessarily let's get rid of him, but kind of look at another direction to be his backup, to be possibly taking over in the future.
Let's hold up with the Mike Pouncey talk for 1 second. I just want to play. I mean, I know you can't see this right now because you are calling in by phone, but for the viewers out there, I'm going to play a clip of Ryan Tannehill late in that game. This guy, he had to fight people to get out of the locker room. He did not want to watch his team from the trainer's table. He wanted to go out and watch them from the sideline like a man. And I'll show you part of the Fox broadcast.
Coming back out of the locker room moments ago after being injured late in the third quarter.
Right now we can see Ryan Tannehill. He's got some tears in his eyes, towel on his face, wiping his tears. And the Pouncey, who you just brought up, he's consoling him on the sideline, having a conversation with him right now. Kenny Stills comes up to Tannehill, gives him a high five, starts talking to him. Brandon Albert, left tackle, comes and gives him a hug.
Hugged him up. That's Mike Pouncey there.
Pouncey again.
Hold on with Matt Moore. Right now, the Dolphin defense.
Some trainer comes over to him. And then his boy, Jarvis Landry, not elite hands Landry, also comes over and gives him a hug. Pretty powerful scene right there. You know,
I have to say, though, on Tannehill, I respect him a lot. I respect him a lot more now. And I do think Tannehill's a better quarterback than Matt Moore. I'm not disputing that. I just don't think it's a huge drop-off.
It's not even close, Brian. That's my opinion. But I want you to tell me why you don't think it's close. But I also know you want to talk about Pouncey too.
Well, okay, Matt Moore does have a winning record. Let's get that out of the way. He has a winning record. But I just think that I think Tannehill is just a better quarterback overall because of his athleticism, and he's really good on the play action. I just don't think it's like – I think it's like, let's say –
Hey, Mark Sanchez has a winning record too. Just saying.
I forgot all about that guy.
Man.
I forgot about his existence.
He's 4-2 in the playoffs. 4-2. I mean,
yeah.
shoot. Does Dan Marino have 4 playoff wins?
I don't even think. Yeah, he would have to because he's been in the Super Bowl. So
but that doesn't mean he's got 4 playoff wins, though.
Well, you have to win at least 4 to get to the playoffs, don't you?
No, you could win 2 games and get in the Super Bowl.
Is it
he didn't win that Super Bowl. So, if let's say Marino got to that Super Bowl and he had a bye that year, and then he only won 1 playoff game in all his other seasons, then that's only 3 playoff wins. I mean, I'm not even saying that's true. I don't know. I'm just taking some jabs out there. And,
yeah. I mean, I just don't think Matt Moore's the drop off to the point that's going to hurt us beating the Jets or even trying to make the playoffs. I don't think he's as talented as obviously Tannehill, but I don't think it's to the point that we're going to go. He's TJ Yates that we just signed, in fact.
Okay. TJ, oh my gosh. We
just signed him.
He beat us last year in Houston. We got crushed in that game. This guy, he was throwing darts deep middle of the field, toasting Darrelle Revis to DeAndre Hopkins. Oh, man. Jets fans were sick after that game.
Revis is the best corner in the league, though.
Right now, yeah, there's no doubt about it. His days are numbered. Tell me about Pouncey, because you got to be concerned if you're a Dolphins fan. He's got a top 5 center contract in the league. This guy never seems to be healthy. Seems like he misses about half the games every year.
Oh, I'm extremely concerned. I mean, he's only played 4 games this year alone, and he's not going to be playing the rest of the year. And what is it? And they keep saying, it's a bruised hip, but it has to be more than just some bruise. I mean, they're just not telling us because it's been like this for the last 3-4 years. He doesn't play a whole season. He's amazing when he's on the field. He's undeniably the best center, like on the field usually when you play another team. But he can't stay healthy. So what do you go with that? Is he the next Jake Long that we have, or is it something that we need to find somebody that's a backup that can have that's relative to him, and then see what we can get on him in the open market?
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about the structure of the cap, and when you look at some of the it's not like you guys are great on the cap. I mean, you got Ndamukong Suh, one player, just eating up an astronomical amount of money. You can't afford to have guys that are on the shelf. I mean, one thing about Suh is Suh's going to suit up every single week. He might get suspended one week, but otherwise, that man's suiting up. But Pouncey, it's like, I mean, am I going to have this guy for half the games this season? And I'm paying him all this money. Is it worth it at that point? So
I made a joke with a buddy of mine that about his brother as well. I was like, well, if you put them on the same team, you'll get 8 games out of each other.
It's so true, but they're both really good when they're in there. Real quick before we let you go, you are conducting the J train. That is your boy, Boise State.
Yeah.
You're front and center. Some of our topic discussion last week was all about JHI and these advanced stats and the rates that he's breaking tackles at. Give me a sense of, what your stance is on JHI and some of the comments that I had said last week. Both Gary and I said, yeah, he might be a top 5 back, but he's not as good as you're saying. What do you have to say about that?
I kind of backed up a little bit on that. I still think Dave Johnson is the best running back in the league. Complete back. I kind of reneged on that a little bit. I still think he's probably the top 3, top 2. I just think that with this offensive line, I mean, he can't get to the line of scrimmage without being hit in the backfield. Mm-hmm. And people say, Ezekiel Elliott's the best. Ezekiel Elliott's the best, but he has the best offensive line in the league. He doesn't get hit until he gets to basically the linebackers in the secondary. And that's not a knock on Ezekiel Elliott. I'm not even knocking him on that. But how do you really evaluate when you have the best offensive line in football?
That's a great point. I mean, what could J.J. do if he was behind that Dallas line? And the reality is we won't ever know, but it's nice to think about.
Well, that was kind of where we were having that conversation was where would David Johnson, J.J., whomever be behind that offensive line? Mm-hmm. How much further would they be? I mean, they both break an enormous amount of tackles. So is that more yardage for him? How does that work? I mean, JJ has amazing vision. He fights. The only knock I have on him, he's not the greatest pass catcher. But then again, we don't even have wide receivers that can block anyways. We can't even block for a screen, let alone a pass for a running back.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, obviously I watched all the Dolphins preseason games. I don't remember you guys being very effective in the screen game during the preseason as well. It's just been something that you guys haven't been good at all year, dating all the way back to the preseason. But anyway, it's going to be interesting to see how things go. We play you this week. Give us your prediction on the game before you go. What happened?
On the Jets game. On this game
in New Jersey.
Man. I actually think we're probably going to win 24-13. I think that we're going to end up running the ball more on you guys. I think we're going to establish that because of Matt Moore, because we don't know what he has completely. Well, Gase I don't think does fully. You know, Gase seems to like him. I think we'll win 24-14, and I think JJ will have about 105 yards on you guys, honestly.
Yeah, I'm concerned. Can Bryce Petty even put up 14 points? The Dolphins defense has been pretty solid. They really have over recent weeks. So we'll see. Anyway, Brian, thanks a bunch.
Would you rather have Matt Moore or Bryce Petty?
I mean, as a backup, I'd rather have Matt Moore.
Right now, let's
say I have Tony Romo, right? And Romo's good most weeks when I know he's playing, but I'm scared that he's going to get hurt. And I want to have a competent backup to come in case Romo gets hurt. I would much rather have Matt Moore to fill in for a spot or two. But in terms
do you think would Matt Moore be able to win your starting job compared to the quarterback? You have, 4 or 5 quarterbacks right now?
Could he beat out Fitzpatrick? I guess he could. Could he beat out Geno? I guess I could. But what does that mean? What is that saying? Well, I mean, what does that say anything about Matt Moore? I mean, do I want him as the future? Do I want him to quarterback our team next year? Not a chance.
No. But what I'm saying, he's serviceable enough to probably win you some games, to at least for the Dolphins enough to win you a couple of games and maybe even go to the playoffs. Now, a playoff run, no, but maybe to the playoffs. I mean, he has the ability to at least win us a couple of games.
At this point, I mean, if he's your starter,
better than what you guys have.
If he's your starter for an entire season, not a chance your team goes to the playoffs.
Yeah, agreed.
If he fills in for you and you got a soft spot of your schedule, maybe he can do something. Anyway, Brian, thanks for calling.
Thank you.
Take care. All right, next we're going to bring on AFC East Bros contributor, Mr. Travis Wingfield from WelcomeToPerfectville.com and the Finalysis podcast. Great podcast. I tune into every single episode. I even binged listened to all those episodes, one after the other. What's up, Travis?
Oh, you're too kind, Kyle, man. How's it going, buddy?
Doing pretty good. I'm sure that you must be doing much better after getting the news that Ryan Tannehill, it's not as bad as we thought. It's not the dreaded ACL tear. Man, you were going off on Facebook. You had said something, and I don't have you word for word here, but you'd said something like, I hope Calais Campbell gets Lou Gehrig's disease, AIDS, something else.
Yeah, it was a pretty weird, emotional day. I was telling my friends I'm in a pretty dark place right now because it would just be so Dolphins to get to 8-5 and have a chance to go back to the playoffs for the first time in nearly a decade. And then our quarterback that's finally turned it around and playing well under the new coach, he goes out and Calais Campbell, he's a good guy. Like I said, that was an overreaction. Getting mad at him. He even sought out Ryan Tannehill's phone number and sent him a text saying, "Hey, sorry, that wasn't intentional." Campbell's a good guy, so just was a little bit upset. But it was pretty strange yesterday. I was sitting at work on my computer, kind of just browsing the Dolphins forums and Twitter and stuff, and to see the news come across that he didn't have a torn ACL. I've never heard that before. It's always like, they say maybe he's out for the year. We don't know yet. We'll do the MRI. And then they say, okay, yeah, he is out. And so for on Sunday for the report to say that he was out and then to hear on Monday that he wasn't going to be out for, the torn ACL was really strange to have it almost like overturned on the injury there.
Yeah, right. And right now on the screen, I got the still shot of Calais Campbell going low and the impact that it had on Ryan Tannehill's knee. And, what's interesting is, people were saying, Kian Fahey most notably, that Ryan Tannehill doesn't play scared. He might not have the best pocket movement, but it's not because he's scared. It's just maybe he just doesn't have the greatest feel for things. But he always steps into his throws. And a lot of quarterbacks now, because they're scared of people going low, because they're scared of getting hurt, sometimes when there's pressure around them, they won't fully step into their throws. Here, Tannehill is fully planted, stepping right into that throw, giving everything right there. And Campbell just happens to go low on him. So,
Yeah, that's really one of the traits you admire about Tannehill. It's his ability to stand in there and stare down the gun barrel and deliver some big time throws. And you saw it there in that play. And it's been that way for the whole 5 years of his career in Miami, which is, pretty odd considering the fact that he's had such poor offensive line play and been beaten up, almost to a David Carr type of level back when he was with the Texans in the early 2000s. So you really got to admire that about him and just his durability in taking those shots. And now he goes out, and then to have him come back and not have a torn ACL just is really a testament to that durability and what he means to this team. And, I go back and forth with Brian on Twitter quite a bit. He gives me a lot of crap for some of my Jakeem Grant comments, which is probably, deserved at this point. But I got to say,
it is. I gave you something about that the first time you came on here.
Yeah, you did. I still think he has a place in the offense. I don't know, for some reason they don't want to get him out there. And, you see Tyreek Hill going off the way he does. I see some similar traits there between the two guys, but the guy's dropping punts and kickoffs left and right. So I think it's probably time to shut down that experiment idea for the rest of the season. But what I wanted to talk about, go off on Brian about was I couldn't disagree more with him on the Ryan Tannehill, Matt Moore thing. Arm talent there. Tannehill, decision-making hasn't always been his best trait, and his pocket awareness, it's an overused term, but hasn't been his best trait either. But his arm talent is, there's not 10 guys in the league that have better arm talent than Ryan Tannehill. And Matt Moore, he's Jay Fiedler with his arm, basically. So he throws like a nice deep ball, but it's more about anticipation and just kind of giving his guy a chance to make a play. If you go back to his time with the Panthers, he just kind of threw a lot of 50-50 balls to Steve Smith, and we know what he does with those. So he brought a lot of those passes down. And even the game-winning, or the pass set up the game-winning field goal to Kenny Stills was an all-out blitz, and he saw single coverage, and he just chucked it up and gave Kenny Stills a chance, and luckily Stills made a play for him. So the arm talent is such a huge drop-off. I think the offense has to be scaled back a little bit because of the ability, like he mentioned, with the athleticism isn't there either. So I think the drop-off is pretty big. I think you're going to find out more about Adam Gase and anything in the next couple of games and see what he can do to get, Matt Moore playing at a high level, because in the last, 8 games, the Dolphins are 7-1. Brian Tannehill's numbers, he's a top 10 quarterback in those games with a passer rating over 100, a touchdown percentage is in the top 10 of the NFL, and a pretty low interception rate too. So, he's been a Pro Bowl quarterback for the last 8 games, and you're not going to get that out of Matt Moore.
I 100% agree with you, Travis. Not even close, in my opinion. And many Dolphins fans that I respect are kind of echoing the same things. Max Himmelrich, when he was doing his review and he was posting out a lot of different GIFs of different Dolphins plays, one thing that he said on the touchdown that Ryan Tannehill threw to Kenny Stills off of play action, you're not going to get a type of throw like that from Matt Moore. You're just not. And I have that on the screen right now. I know you can't see it, but, that's what Ryan Tannehill brings. Like, you're talking about the deep balls, and obviously this is a plus 20-yard pass, and you'd said, like, yeah, Moore can kind of throw a deep ball, but it's more so about anticipation. It's not like he's rifling it in there. And this is a laser. This ball has velocity on it. Matt Moore doesn't throw the football like that. He just doesn't. So these, kind of like deep posts, you just can't run those with Matt Moore. And I'm pretty sure you agree with me on that.
Yeah, 100%. And that throw, I know exactly what throw you're talking about. I've seen it 100 times now, obviously being the serial film watcher that I am. But the way that pass kind of arcs in over the defender with the type of zip and velocity that you mentioned, it's a really special throw. And, like I said, the kind of throws that only a few guys in the league can make. And he is one of those guys. I know that people think he's not one of the top 10 quarterbacks, but from an arm talent and athleticism, standpoint, you put it all together physically, it's all there for him. It always has been. That's what made him the 8th pick in the draft back in 2012. So he has the skills. I think it's starting to come together for him a little bit mentally between the years. And then obviously you see that leadership role that he serves for the team, the way they reacted after he got hurt. So I'm encouraged about his future with the Dolphins. I hope he can come back for the stretch run. I actually just posted an article on Welcome to Corporateville late last night talking about the Dolphins playoff scenarios. And actually with the Broncos losing and the Ravens losing last night, it now basically comes down to Miami and Denver. And if Miami can find a way to get to 10-6, and that means definitely beating the Jets on Saturday, and then winning 1 of 2 against the Bills, and then possibly a Patriots team that could be resting guys, or even possibly Cardale Jones for the Bills. Who knows who they're going to play at quarterback,
that would be
or whether or not Rex Ryan's going to be there.
I'm sorry, that would be really
I agree. I completely agree. I love Tyrod Taylor. I think the Bills are silly for not wanting to have him back. But if they find 2 wins out of those last 3, and the Broncos only win 1 against the Chiefs, Raiders, and Patriots, then the Dolphins are going to the playoffs because of the way it all works out. So, the chance is right there for them. If they can get in and Tannehill can come back to the playoffs, it sets up for one of those kind of storybook type of, Tom Brady in for Drew Bledsoe type of deals, which, it's not likely to happen, but it does set up for one of those if he can come back. And that's kind of what Dolphins fans are just hanging their laurels on right now, hoping that, Matt Moore does enough to keep him in the games and the running game gets going and the defense keeps playing well, and then hopefully Tannehill can come back with the brace and play. But we're just kind of playing with house money right now. 8 wins wasn't expected by most people. I had him at 7-9. So to be at 8-5 with 3 games left against the AFC East says a lot about Adam Gase. I think you're going to find out even more in the next couple of weeks. It really is. I mean,
just
it's been
to
a long
play
time.
meaningful games in December says something.
And there's that chance for retribution too against you guys. I mean, in the 2013 season, all we had to do was beat a Geno Smith-led Jets team, and you guys kind of took the shed and ruined our season. And then this game actually reminds me a lot of, I think it was 2014 in a Monday night game when the Jets piled up like almost 300 yards rushing, didn't turn the ball or didn't have any fumbles. I think Geno Smith had a couple of picks, but I think he passed like 5 or 6 times in that game.
I think they ran the ball like 47 times.
We still won like a 16-13 game somehow. So I am getting kind of some squeamish feelings about that being the case with since you guys are actually playing your best running back now, Bilal Powell, in my opinion. So I'm a little bit worried about that, but I think they should be able to take care of business, even though it is.
Be scared of Powell, man. Be scared. Let me tell you what. Jets fans, like our friend Joe, who he's another, I would guess, well, he's not officially a contributor to the show, but he comes on every now and then. He's a good buddy of mine, Jets podcaster. He went and took the trip up to Buffalo last year, and on the ride there, he got notification on his phone that Bilal Powell would be out of that game. And Powell was just a monster in the 5-game winning streak leading up to that Week 17 matchup in Buffalo. And he and the people that he was driving up there with, they all just said, they threw their hands up in disgust and were so angry. And they're like, oh, we're going to lose this game. We're going to lose this game. We need this guy. That's how good he's been to the Jets offense over the past couple of years. But for some reason, let's bring in 30-year-old Matt Forte, who's got, so much tread on his tires. He's basically, bare at this point, and let's keep playing him. But anyway, what is Denver's last 3 games?
They play home for the Patriots this week, and Patriots don't lose games this time of year, and the Broncos' offense has been so bad. I don't trust them in that game at all. So I feel pretty good about
Brady has a losing record in Denver,
weekend.
though. He does have a losing record in Denver. No Gronkowski.
Yeah, that is true. I'll give you that. But I just the Broncos' last 2 games, I actually wrote this in the article. The last 2 games, they've had 23 possessions on offense and scored 20 points. So you're not gonna beat the Patriots scoring 10 points in the game. So I think that definitely bodes well. And then they go to Kansas City, and then they host Oakland. So you're playing 3 teams that have 10 wins in 3 weeks. So I think the odds are pretty likely.
You're a little giddy if you're a Dolphins fan, to be honest. When you look at that, like, that's a tough stretch for Denver. I mean, and look at the Dolphins. Rex Ryan, there's so much dysfunction up in Buffalo right now, and there's too many cooks in the kitchen, as they're saying. And I'm looking forward to getting into some Bills talk. But you have to wonder, are they going to quit on Rex Ryan? Could Rex potentially be fired after this week by the time the Dolphins go up and play them? The Jets, Bryce Petty, we all know how bad the Jets looked a couple weeks ago and even last week. And then, the Patriots might have the 1 seed locked up Week 17. So even if Matt Moore is playing all 3 of those games, you have to be a little giddy. But I will say this, Travis, if we had – you all know I'm for the tank. But if we had to win one more game in this last final stretch, it's the Dolphins in my mind. You guys already beat us.
Of course,
this year. I want to stop you guys from getting to the playoffs, not because I don't like you or anything, but it's a rival. We got to stop them. The Patriots, what are we going to do? We're not going to mess up their seeding or anything like that. The Bills, we already beat the Bills. So there will be a slight smirk on my face if we beat you guys and screwed up your playoff run. I just must say that.
Yeah, I think you should. That's kind of what the whole point of the season is for at this point for you guys, other than getting the high draft pick. But I just look at that matchup, and I have, when they drafted Bryce Petty, I was like, oh, cool, good for them. A wasted 4th-round pick, because I don't think much of him. I don't like very many air raid quarterbacks to begin with, let alone ones that just don't really have a whole lot of talent in their body. And I think he's one of those guys. And when I saw him coming into the when they were talking about benching Fitzpatrick, I was like, yeah, he's playing bad, but I think Bryce Petty wouldn't even be the backup on, at least half the teams in the NFL. So I'm not worried about the offense at all, the Jets. Maybe a little bit of Bilal Powell, but it's basically just, and you mentioned how giddy the Dolphins fans can be. And I was so excited throughout that whole Cardinals game because the Titans were ahead of the Broncos for much of the game. And I said going into that, if the Titans beat the Broncos, Miami's in a phenomenal spot provided they win against the Cardinals. So being up by 12 points over the Cardinals and the Titans are up by 13 when Tannehill gets hurt, and it just took the wind out of our sails. And, the defense allowed back-to-back touchdown drives of like 99 yards and like 80 yards. So, or no, I think it was like 50 yards. So, 140 yards total on touchdown drives, back-to-back drives after they were up by 12. And then, with Tannehill going out, it's like, great, we finally have a shot at, getting into the playoffs and, maybe winning a game and hopefully giving New England a tough run in the second round if, best case scenario. But that's better than we could have hoped for at the start of the year. So we're all excited. And then when he gets hurt, it just took the wind out of the sails of the fan base. When that field goal went through at the end of the game, I didn't even really have much of a reaction. I was like, yeah, that's cool. But, Matt Moore, great. This guy played 5 years ago, and he was, he had a nice little run that year, but he's been dreadful in the preseason every game since then. And he's nowhere near the level of Ryan Tannehill. So they're going to have to overcome that injury, but it's possible. I'm hoping they do.
I tell you what, there's not. I know you said this on Twitter. You're like, you don't know what playoff wins are like. You're a 29-year-old Dolphin fan. I'll say this: I can't remember having such that euphoric feeling as when we went on those playoff runs in 2009, 2010. That's when I really started becoming an intense Jets fan, and I really started watching every single game. There was nothing like it. Like just the whole week leading up to the playoff games, it's just like you're just nervous. You're thinking about every little detail. It's totally different than the regular season. So there's no other way to explain it. But anyway, Travis, got to get on to other callers. Thank you for calling in. Give us a quick preview about what we can expect on the Finalysis podcast and welcome to perfectville.com from you.
I'm going to go over the film for the Cardinals game, talk a lot of crap about Anthony Steen as well as Spencer Pastinger, the two goats of the game for me, the center and the linebacker. We'll get to the Jets preview. I'm predicting, I want to say 19-6 victory for the Dolphins in that game. And then we'll talk a little bit about some draft prospects and just kind of the normal format. And then also my preview piece on the blog of Welcome to Perfectville and Write Travis Wright. So look out for those things.
All right, Travis. Thank you so much. Follow Travis on Twitter at Travis_Writes, the Finalysis podcast. That's with a PH. And go ahead and follow the Perfectville podcast. They're in association with that. And welcome to perfectville.com. Great Travis Wright blog. That is the official blog of welcome to perfectville.com. Thanks, Travis.
Hey, thanks a lot, Kyle. Have a good night, man.
You too. And next we will go to Rumi, the New York Jets fan. Hey, Rumi, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Kyle? Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for coming on, and I am doing very well. I'm not probably as thrilled with the Jets win as you, but it's nice to see.
I see. It's going to mess up the draft order. I take it, right?
Yeah, which, I get it. The draft is kind of a crapshoot, but there is something to be said for having higher draft picks, and you can always trade out and accumulate more picks. It does help. I mean, just look what happened with the Tennessee Titans and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They had really bad seasons. First and second pick overall, drafted Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota, and those franchises have now been turned around. So, I was kind of hoping for something like that with the Jets, but we'll see. But anyway, tell us about the game, Rumi. I'm going to go ahead and
it was so exciting. It was a great game to watch going into overtime. I mean, I know there was a lot of empty seats on the other side, on the home side, but the visitor side, there was plenty of Jet fans, and we were pretty loud doing the JETS, Jets chant, and irritating all the 49er fans around us. But, it was great game overall. I mean, the first half, it was so bad. Petty throwing that interception, and we're not scoring, and it just didn't look very good. The defense was not even stopping Hyde. He was just, running all over the place.
He looked awesome. I mean, it wasn't part of it was the Jets not tackling him, but I mean, that guy was just getting to the corner and cutting up field. He looked fast. He just looked really, really good, and we did not have the answer for him. But, hey, when push came to shove right at the end of the game, they ran in on fourth down in overtime, and we did stop them. So, tip your cap. And a guy who's been getting a lot of criticism, I don't know where you stand on him, Rumi, Muhammad Wilkerson, he played a big role in that run stuff.
He did. He stopped that fourth down stop. That was huge. I mean, I was surprised. Even Sheldon Richardson, he had a couple tackles.
Yeah,
in there. He did, but the thing that really surprised me the most, I mean, this shocked me. I almost like fell out of my chair, is when the Jets did that 2-point conversion. I'm like, are you kidding me? Throughout the whole off season, I was complaining that we never do the 2-point, conversion. The last successful one, I believe, was in 2010. The Steelers, they do that all the time.
Right? It's to Braylon Edwards, right?
Yes, the Braylon Edwards, exactly. And it's like the Steelers last season, they do it all the time, the 2-point conversion. They had like 8 or something. They led the league with the most. Yeah. So I was really shocked by that. And Petty did a good job throwing the ball. I mean, he threw a couple long balls. He missed Robbie Anderson a couple times, but then, Robbie caught some of them too and made big plays.
There's no doubt. And you were obviously a big Fitzpatrick supporter in the offseason. Not that you thought he was great or anything, but just that you thought he was the best option for the Jets. And me and you actually went back and forth on Twitter a little bit. And I was saying, listen, Rumi's not as good as, some people are making out to be. And I would tweet at you some graphics and stuff talking about his deep ball and how he's not effective at throwing the deep ball. But he had some weak points and strong points. He didn't have a good arm. I agree with you, but he got rid of the ball quickly, better than Geno, I think, under pressure. He rarely got sacked. Like last season, he had the fewest sack percentage. You're 100% about that. 100% about that. And going back to the deep ball, that's something that Bryce Petty, I wouldn't say he's great at it, but if you compare him to Fitz, there's a pretty stark difference. And that play in overtime, how close were you to that play in overtime?
I was right there. I was at the 30-yard line. Yes. I mean, that was the best seats. I mean, that was just all the action was there. So we saw it in front of our face. I mean, the crowd, we went nuts. I should have just videoed that part, but, our reaction, but I didn't. I was just too, we were just cheering like crazy.
Yeah. And I got a picture on the screen right now, and this is going to go on the YouTube video for this as we're speaking. Your seats, awesome. You're right behind the Jets bench right now, and it looks like you got great seats.
Thank you. Yes, I was yelling at them. I'm pretty sure they heard us.
Oh, definitely. I would agree with that, because it's not like that stadium was a madhouse. I mean, there's so many empty seats there, so it's not like they definitely could probably make out some voices for sure.
Well, the concession stand, I mean, those prices were, I don't know if you saw my tweet. It was ridiculous. I mean, $47 for lunch.
Oh, my God.
I don't know how MetLife is, but that's just ridiculous, those prices.
Whenever I go to the stadium, I don't go very often, but whenever I go, I don't ever end up buying food. So, but $47, what did you get?
I know. Well, just 2 chicken sandwiches and 2 drinks.
Oh, my gosh. That's crazy.
I know. It was crazy.
But then again, you live in California, so you're used to the expensive prices, I'm assuming.
No, that's Silicon Valley. Those prices are more outrageous than LA.
Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about the Jets head coaching situation, because I don't know where you stand. Are you on the Fire Bowles train, or are you not there?
No, I am. I want to get rid of him. But realistically speaking, if you look at Mangini, when he was coaching, it looked like they had similar records. His first year, he was 10-6. They went to the playoffs. He was 3-12. We missed the playoffs. And that was a year, I guess, with the Spygate, the whole thing with the Patriots. And then the third year, he had a last chance. And then he didn't make it to the playoffs. And then he got fired.
Yeah.
So I'm afraid that the Jets are going to give him another chance. Although I want Jim Harbaugh, I want him. He's fiery. He's like he would give a spark to the to the players.
That was my next question, because I saw that you liked my tweet about Jim Harbaugh and how Woody needs to just get it right, pull the Robert Kraft move. Listen, Robert Kraft many years ago saw a guy in Bill Belichick. Knew that guy was the guy to lead his organization, went out, traded draft picks, first-round pick, to the Jets, to a rival team to go and get his coach and give him full power, and it's been the best move that he's ever made, even better than drafting Tom Brady. And I'm saying I don't know that Jim Harbaugh will ever be as good as Belichick or even come close to that, but I see potential there. And what the Jets' current organization structure, both guys independently report to the owner, it's not working. It never has been for many years.
Exactly.
So you go and you give Harbaugh full control. Give him control over player personnel. Pay him an astronomical contract. Woody, if you really want to win, pony up.
He has experience. I mean, he went to the Super Bowl, and he actually he developed Alex Smith, too, the 49ers. I mean, we need somebody who can actually develop a young quarterback like Petty.
Yep.
He can do it.
I mean, Alex Smith they were ready to run that guy out of the league. And, Harbaugh, brought him and developed him and made him into a quarterback. Alex Smith was nothing before that. And not only that, but Rumi, did Colin Kaepernick look good in that game against the Jets?
In the beginning he did, but in the end it looked like, no, he didn't do too well.
He looked bad.
He threw a lot of passes. Yeah, the first half he looked good. He kept throwing the ball, giving it to Hyde, and everything. But the second half, amazingly.
But what I'll say, though, is that his best years, Colin Kaepernick, was under Jim Harbaugh. Much better than we've seen recently. So, obviously, Harbaugh's a guy that can develop a quarterback. He used to play the position himself. And where the Jets struggled most since Joe Namath, it's been quarterback. So that's just another thing that's enticing to me, too.
I think we're the only ones who are wanting Jim Harbaugh, though. I don't think anybody else is agreeing with us. They want Tom Coughlin or Norv Turner. Oh, Norv Turner is horrible. No way.
No way, Rumi. I 100% agree with you there. Tom Coughlin, we might as well hire my grandfather to coach the team.
Exactly. He's still too old. I don't even know if he's healthy enough to even coach a team. And Norv Turner, I know Phillip Rivers had a tough time with him. I was at that game in 2014. He just yells at him and disrespects him left and right. No, I don't think so. We need someone like Jim Harbaugh. He has that fiery personality, and I think, I don't know, he's like Rex Ryan. He's like a player's coach. That's what it is. We need a player's coach, like Mike Tomlin of the Steelers, Pete Carroll of the Seahawks.
Mm-hmm. But Jim Harbaugh has a much better record than Rex Ryan, though. There's no doubt about it.
That's true.
Jim Harbaugh's teams, they had competent quarterback play, something that Rex Ryan really never had, except maybe last year with Tyrod Taylor. And he's had, even though Harbaugh's an offensive guy, they had great defenses in San Francisco too. So to me, he seems like a complete coach that can coach a team to be good on both sides of the ball. And he's won wherever he's been as a head coach. So to me, all those reasons are intriguing. And Rumi, I think that most people would come around to our side. I just think that most of them don't think it's realistic, to be honest.
Well, I think the Rams were wanting him too, I heard. I read some reports that they're after him and the Packers.
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh.
Which makes sense. Listen, if you're Harbaugh, why would you not want to go to Aaron Rodgers? And, L.A., you got a nice young quarterback who I know he's not doing anything right now, but he's at least got potential. And from what I hear, Jim Harbaugh's wife loves the West Coast. She loves the California area, out where you're.
I thought they were divorced. Oh, I don't know.
Oh, is that true? A couple of years ago, that's what I heard, but maybe that's a recent thing. I don't know.
But I don't know who we're going to get. What do you think about Chan Gailey, though? I think he needs to go.
Oh,
we need a tight end, too, by the way. I know people are disagreeing with me that we shouldn't get a tight end, first-round draft pick.
Not that early, Rumi. Maybe if we were drafting towards the end. If we were drafting towards the end of the first round, I think one of these tight ends could be worth it. But we're going to be in the top 10, Rumi, and there's no tight end that's worth the top 10 pick. Let's be honest.
Not even O.J. Howard?
I don't think so.
Alabama?
I
don't
think so. Yeah.
Well, we need a tight end, and Chan Gailey, he doesn't even know how to use a tight end. So if he comes back, it's going to be the same thing. We're not going to have a tight end, and it's horrible. I think we're the only team who doesn't have one. It's very frustrating. I don't like it. I don't know if you agree with me, but
I know it is frustrating for sure. Listen, our tight ends have caught 7 passes this year. That's an embarrassment.
Did they even score a touchdown? I don't even think so.
Well, Kellen Davis did last year out in Oakland, but
last year, and I'm saying this year.
And he's terrible. I'm glad he's gone. I hope that the door hit him in the butt on the way out. But anyway, Chan Gailey, I would rather see Casey Rogers go before Chan Gailey, to be honest. But I wouldn't be sad if Chan Gailey left. But Rumi, we also have
who's out there though? I don't know who's out there. Offensive coordinator.
Usually offensive coordinators, they're kind of promoted. Like, usually you pick up a guy who used to be a quarterback's coach from another team or something like that. Like even Adam Gase, like he was only the current coach for the Dolphins. He was only an offensive coordinator for a couple of years. Before that, he was wide receivers quarterbacks coach before that. So usually they get promoted from somewhere else. I don't think that we need to bring in a veteran guy. I think we need to have some young guy to come in and be the offensive
Yeah,
coordinator.
so I saw the Bills, they fired the offensive coordinator, and I thought that was the wrong move, and that was the right move at the time after our game. They fired him.
I tell you what, their offense looked pretty good for the next couple weeks.
Yes.
But in recent weeks, they've kind of been slipping off a little bit. So, I think when we look back in the season in its entirety, we'll wonder and we'll see if that was the right move. But there's no doubt that our offense has been bad. I think it mostly has to do with quarterback play. But Chan Gailey's not been good as well. Like, for example, Rumi, that shovel pass. How many times have we done that this year? And it's not worked, not even one time.
Exactly. I don't know what he's thinking. Do we even do a reverse? I don't even think we even did that play either, like a fake or something. It's always the same plays over and over, giving it to Forte down the middle or look for Marshall. It's getting too predictable.
Yeah. Speaking of predictable, that got me thinking about San Francisco, where we were just at. The whole Full House song, "Whatever Happened to Predictability." I saw Connor Hughes went and saw that house, and he posted on Instagram, "Whatever happened to predictability." Anyway, I can be quite a corny guy sometimes. Anyway,
so are you actually rooting for the Jets to lose the next 3 games?
Rumi, I always feel so conflicted when I watch the games. Like, I get happy when I see Quincy Enunwa make a one-handed catch. I get happy when I see Robbie Anderson catch a 40-yard pass downfield. I get happy if I see Sheldon Richardson make a sack.
Yes.
But I still want to lose the game. So it's like it's so hard for me. I'm all back and forth. Like, I know that it could be good for them in terms of the long term, because I want to see the Jets be good in the long term. I want to see them going to Super Bowls. And sometimes going 8-8, 7-9, and getting a mid-round draft pick, and
it's not good.
It doesn't always help you sometimes. So it's tough for me. Like, I will say this, and I just said this to Travis when he was just on. If we have to win one of these games, I hope it's against the Dolphins, and we screw up their postseason hopes.
Yeah, I agree too. Although I do like the Dolphins, I don't really hate them too much.
So you hate the Bills and the Patriots more?
Yes.
Okay.
I like Jarvis Landry. I actually had a chance to meet him at an event. He's a nice guy.
He's a good player. He plays hard. Not so nice on the field, but off, I'm sure he's a nice guy. But anyway, Rumi, we can follow you on Twitter. That's RKLoveJets. Is that correct?
Yes. It was nice talking to you, Kyle, and you have a great podcast, you and Gary.
Thank you. We appreciate that. And sorry Gary couldn't be – he had to take care of an emergency, but sorry he couldn't be with us this evening. And hopefully next time when you ring in, you can speak to the both of us. But awesome call, and we hope you do it again sometime.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
You too. Bye. All right, and I'll go to the next caller. This is – oh, wait. What am I doing? I need to have some entrance music for this one. Almost didn't notice the number for a moment. But in the meantime, while I pull up that entrance music, boy, was that a nice call from Rumi. We appreciate her calling. That is the first female caller to the show. We've been doing this for – what is it? About, I would say, a year and a quarter now. About 16 months, give or take, 7 or 15 months. First woman caller. We've had tons of callers. We've had Giants fans. We've had Patriots fans, Dolphins fans, Chiefs fans. Not just AFC East teams. We've had so many different people. But that's the very first female caller, and it was a good one. So we definitely appreciate the call from Rumi. Go ahead and give her a follow on Twitter, RKLoveJets. She's a passionate Jets fan. She's diehard, and she's definitely a good follow on Twitter. So with that, I'll go ahead and I will welcome the next caller.
Are you loyal to your team? 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 This team is...
Hold on one moment.
Taking me through my cancer and all my friggin' eye surgeries. Wow. And that's the bottom line. They keep me alive every day. And you know my personal story, Bob. So this story means diddly squat. Stay loyal to the Patriots. And that's all I get to say, Bob. I love you. I'm going to send you a personal message. And hopefully I'll see you in Phoenix.
None other than Nick Baby Love himself. What's up, Nick?
Hey, I got some suggestions. I'm tired. I'll talk to you. It's been a rough stretch. I'll be doing my procedures, at the Cancer Institute all week, and it's all good. One thing, obviously you're going to hit me to this video stuff,
Yes.
And one thing, I've obviously been on hold from the beginning of the whole show, and, I have a few comments and whatnot, but it's great if you let the callers, I don't know who hangs on like me, to listen to the whole show, because not only could you punch somebody back in, or they'll be able to hear right there live, the comments. Like you had that guy, I guess, Tyson on, which I got a big problem with him. And then this girl is sensational. What was her name?
Her name is Rumi, Rumi, Rumi.
That's a beautiful name. Yeah, and if they know, like, who's on hold or whatever, like, hey, Nick Baby Love's on hold, or Rumi's on hold or whatever, you know what I mean? And I wish, the callers would hang in there even after they're finished with their little chat with you, where they can, hear the show, and that's what's going to build off of that, because you see how it's growing. You've been on for a while now, you know what I mean? For at least 10 years you've been on, you know what I mean? So, you with me?
I'm with you, Nick. No,
yeah, well,
you're totally
perception's
right.
everything. I don't want to hear about 16 months or whatever. You've been on for a while. Perception's everything, and you know me, I'm hyping up the show like crazy. So my point is, I enjoy listening live, and that's something for the future. But we can mention it to different people, and that's how you're gonna get them to call back. You know what I mean? So. That's where that's at.
Well, thank you, Nick, for that. And I'll definitely keep that in mind. And, I do apologize. I did not notice your number literally until because I'm hosting the show solo tonight. I'm trying to constantly put topics back and forth, and I'm really not even looking at the soundboard right now. So I didn't even notice that you were on. I do apologize.
But you don't have to apologize. Love is Nick Baby Love is never having to say you're sorry or never having to apologize. You like that, right?
You're the man.
That's from the classic movie Love Story that came out in 1970. You know what I mean? So with a couple of great actors in there, Ali McGraw and Ryan O'Neal. Just a classic, amazing movie. Like I said, there's just too much going on, and I got a lot going on. I happened to be at the Cancer Institute today. There was a couple of Dolphin players there. Like I said, a lot of people know me. I'm known from coast to coast like buttered toast. As I've said before, I know you're going to want to sample that one. And Tannehill's going to be all right. He may play. So that's the word that I got, straight up. You know what I mean? So you never know how I get information, So I just think, the teams I can't stand. I hate the Steelers. I hate the Broncos. They're right at the top. And I don't even want to see them make the playoffs. You know what I mean? So, besides that, I hope the Jets do play the young kid there, and because I like Woody Johnson. I just hope they, just strip it down and do what they got to do, and really look for the right coach. You know what I mean? It's really, I don't know if this guy and all the staff and all that are going to cut it with the Jets. You know what I mean?
I'm right with you, Nick. Totally with you on that. You had said something earlier that you had a problem with Tyson, the New England Patriots fan. What is your grievance with him?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm the number one fan of all time. So maybe he doesn't know some of the old school stuff. I heard, I don't know, he was just commenting. I lost my train of thought, but I was just trying to think a couple of things he was saying, about the playoffs or what's being set up, or what the players are doing, and he sounded to me like the typical spoiled fan. I wish he was still listening. That's what I mean about leaving people on hold up, people listening, or he'll hear the podcast later. I just have issue with, you know what? In other words, you know, I want to be serious with you, right? Obviously, the media sucks. I can't stand them. You know what I mean? CNN is the worst. And, you know, they're on a witch hunt after Mr. Trump. And boom, today what happens? Pastor Dale Scott brings in Jim Brown through Bill Belichick and Ray Lewis, you know, to help with, you know, the community. Just like two Dolphin players, no publicity today. They were there to help kids with leukemia. You know, people don't realize there is a lot, with all the jerks in the league, there is some good people in the league. You know what I mean? And, you know, the point I was making with that was, you know, it's just like there's a lot of hypocrisy in the league. There's a lot of hypocrisy in life. And for everything I've been through, you know, I like the good people, you know, and if I'm making a point, you know, it's just like, you know, you're not going to overturn the election. You're not going to stop being a Jets fan, whatever. Let somebody do what they got to do. I can't stand political correctness. I think that was my point. You know what I mean? Where, you know, you see this deflate thing, number two, and it's pushed under the rug. In other words, look, they don't like Brady. You know what I mean? And it goes back to an old school thing. In other words, Brady's going to retire soon. And just like Joe Namath, you know, they come along once in a great while, you know, and you know, you want to see teams win, you want to see them do well, but I can't deal with the haters, or I can't deal with the people who can't appreciate that New England played their butt off last night, right?
Oh, definitely.
Okay, so in finishing my point, but you know what I mean, because they set the bar high, and that's where I would love to see the Jets and the Dolphins and the Bills, because I love the division. I hope it stays like that forever. There's a lot of pride there. Yet, you know, you see they gave 21 points. Tom's not happy. He was angry. He shouldn't have thrown his only a second interception out of 22 TD passes in the red zone. The other kid lets it touch his foot, the Jones kid. And then, you know, Matthew Slater returning kicks. You know what I mean? So are we the Keystone Cops? So my point is, you know, 12 is going to retire soon. You know, even if it's a couple of years from now, which would be a miracle if he plays a couple more years. And then it's going to be like, hey, where's Jim Kelly? Where's Joe Namath? Or some Richard Todd?
Where's Dan Marino? All those franchises.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Look we talked about. That's the first thing I said to two brothers that were there, and I don't want to mention their names, but they were there because they saw me and they know, because obviously I get my Patriots thing, and I didn't even recognize it because I'm legally blind. But somebody says, "Oh, they're here and they're helping out at the cancer center," you know, and I'm doing my thing. When I go, I'm all over the damn hospital. It's crazy because I've given back, because that's why I'm alive. So there is a lot of good people, but nothing infuriates me more. Like, I want to see this show blow up, and I'm going to make it my mission in life to do it. But I don't want some amateur hour stuff. And maybe I didn't get to the whole point about Tyson, but remember, you know, this is about number 12. We're a mediocre team without him. They played over their heads, the defense, Monday. Hopefully they can keep it going, limit the mistakes, yet, you know, appreciate that, you know what, we ain't going to win all the time. We ain't going to win forever. And that's how I like to see everybody do it. You know, in other words, you know, Buffalo had an incredible run. You know, nobody can take away from Joe Namath what he did and then all those good Jet teams, you know what I mean? And then obviously the Dolphins had 3 or 4 amazing runs. So because this show is about the AFC East, and so, you know, I mean, that's my point. There was probably a couple other issues I missed when I was first
I
out.
totally get what you're saying. You're saying, listen, you know, you're not old school like Nick Baby Love. Nick Baby Love has seen the good times and he's seen lots of bad times as well. And it's easy for a young Patriots fan to get caught up in all the glory and all the Lombardi trophies and all the rings, and be so spoiled to think that, you know, oh, let's cut a player at the drop of a dime. I get what you're saying. Like, Patriots fans are spoiled. There's no doubt about it. And
Spoiled? No, they're caught up in that safe, you know, that safe space, politically correct nonsense. And I whether it's PFW or Playbook with John Rook or the Bob Sosi Show or any of the big stations in Boston, WEI or 98.5 The Sports Hub, I will call them out in a minute. Because guess what? They can talk all the smack, but you know I'm older. And look at all the people following me on Twitter. You know what I mean? And,
you got an amazing following, Nick. Hey, Nick, do you mind if you want to still talk more, I could put you back on. Our next guest is a little bit of a time crunch. So if you want.
No. Do the time crunch because I got a lot to do here. I just wanted to be respectful and call in. You know I got your back. Let's just, you know, make one of the things, you know, hey, so-and-so just called in. He's on hold. And let's get everybody to try to make a goal of, even if they stay on for 15, 20 minutes, where they hear part of the show live and not hang up. Because then that's going to give them input for the following week. And you know me, if I'm on hold for 3 or 4 calls, it's all right. And then they'll hear me comment about them.
No,
you know what I mean? It's just.
It's a beautiful thing. One call can build off the other. No doubt about it.
Look, send my love to Gary, your brother, and obviously the dad and mom and all that.
Will do, Nick. Thanks a bunch. Feel better, all right?
Bye-bye. Thank you.
All right, that's Nick Baby Love. And our next caller is none other than Mr. Joe Blewett, host of Jet Nation Radio. And, Joe, I'll make sure that we get you out of here on time tonight. What's up, Joe?
Yeah. Don't worry about last week, man. It was all good. Like I said, I got into like 7:58 if you want to have me on for that long. So I'll ready to talk some Jets. Good week and a bad week with the win, but the win also brings a lesser of a draft pick. So I'm kind of in the middle.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. And I was just talking to Rumi about this. Like, you know, when you watch the game, and even if you are in theory rooting for a tank, if you're a true Jets fan, there can be no part of you that isn't happy when you see a player that you like making a nice play. You cannot be a true fan and not be happy when you see a young, hungry kid like Robbie Anderson catching a 40-yard pass in overtime. You have to get excited for that, even if you are rooting for the loss. So to me, that was the feelings that were going through me, even though I wanted the Niners to win.
Yeah, and topple that with the fact that I was surrounded. I went to my sister's husband's house, and there was about 15 Giants fans there who were drinking, and I was sitting there as the only Jets fan watching the Jets versus 49ers game, getting crapped on the entire time I was there. So, I definitely rooted for them to win. So it was nice to see at the end of the day, little sense of relief to get a win in what it's been about maybe a month and a half since they've won. So it was a good feeling at the end of the day.
Yeah, I could definitely see what you're saying on that. And there is something to be said, like a team like the 49ers, who at least the last 2 times that we played them, I'm pretty sure we have a losing record over our team's history to the 49ers. And they smacked us up the last 2 times we played. I mean, shoot, we went out to San Francisco 8 years ago, and they were one of those teams that made us go 1-4 down the stretch. They beat us 24-14 with Sean Hill at quarterback. And then the last time we played in MetLife Stadium, this is the infamous Santonio Holmes, having the Liz Frank injury, dropping the ball, and then returning it to the house. They beat us 34-0 in that game. So there is something to be said beating a team like that to say, hey, listen, we might be bad, but we're not as bad as you, and at least having bragging rights in that regard. But, Joe, who stood out to this game? I know you like to do lots of studs and duds, talk about which players were good, which players were bad. Kind of give us a preview of some of the things that you're going to talk about on your show. Who were some studs and who were some duds?
All right. Well, and yeah, we're 3-10 against the 49ers. We've played 13 times. Studs, obviously you have Bilal Powell. And for the people who listen to your show and my show, listen or know that I've been calling for Bilal Powell to get more runs for almost over a year now. So 29 carries, 145 yards, 5 yards per carry. He was really, really good, showed a lot of fight. The one touchdown run, he threw a linebacker over his back and then broke through 2 other tackles and then fought a third guy or fourth guy off for the touchdown. So I really love to watch him play like that, and hopefully he doesn't go back to getting 2, 3, 4 carries again.
It would just be pure
in the next
stupidity
couple of
if they
weeks.
did that. It would be pure incompetence at the highest level if the coaching staff did that.
Yeah, but I just saw today that they were working out Bernard Pierce, and they brought up Kyrie Robinson too. He didn't play last week. I don't know if he'll play this week, but he better get at least that guy deserves at least 10 to 15 touches a game, in my opinion. He should be 50-50 with Matt Forte at this point, if not higher, because he's shown a lot when he's in the game. Other than that, Justin Burris, who played 91.2% of the snaps, had 27 pass coverage snaps and only allowed 3 receptions for 9 yards.
That's your boy.
With 1 pass deflection. Yeah, went to training camp a couple of times. The closed practices where only like the media and stuff gets to go, and me and Glenn were sitting there. And a couple of the days we were saying that this guy's really standing out to us. Big physical guy, and we haven't seen him much this year. So there's a question of are they just not playing him because we have other guys above him who are better, or is he just that bad? And this game he plays 91% of the snaps. He looked really good, so that was good. Not I'm not calling Patrick Peterson like Kyle Fahey, but it's a good start for him when he's getting a lot of snaps there and plays that well. And then 2 other guys who
hold up one moment. Temper the expectations just a little bit. Remember who those wide receivers are for the 49ers. Quentin Patton, Torrey Smith, Jeremy Curley. These are their top guns out in San Francisco. So we do have to keep
don't get on my boy Curley. Don't get on my boy Curly, Kyle. Come on, don't do that to him.
Joe, I like Curly. I like you. And I'm sure you like me too. But if we're to go out there on the field, reality is we can't play in the NFL, Joe. And Curly, he's a nice role player. We take him as our punt returner at this point in time. But he's not a great wide receiver. So there's that. But, Burris is certainly a physical specimen. And the other head scratcher about that too is, Joe, is the other corners on our team suck. There's not a single corner that has been good this year. Marcus Williams has not been good. Buster Screen's been awful. Terrell Revis has been awful. Why haven't we seen more Burrs? That's another head scratcher for sure. But anyway, I digress. You can continue.
Yeah, and obviously you're playing against one of the worst offenses and worst defenses in the NFL. So all these guys it was good, but it's not like they're playing the Seahawks or the Patriots. But still, from going to basically no snaps, seeing him maybe 1, 2, 3 snaps a game, mostly on special teams, to go to 91% of the snaps and only allow 3 receptions for 9 yards. It's a step in the right direction. I'm not even calling him a good or a decent player yet, but it was a nice sign. Robbie Anderson, I thought had a nice game, 6 receptions on 11 targets for 99 yards. Made 2 really, really nice catches. On the run, jumping up, contested balls. Really, really nice game from Robbie Anderson. And we've seen some games where he makes crazy catches blanketed by a corner, and there's other games where he drops an easy ball because of lack of physicalness or concentration. So good game for him. And then the last one for me, and then I'll if you want, I'll go into some of the duds I'll talk about. I'm flying solo as well on my show in a couple minutes. Wesley Johnson had a really nice game replacing Nick Mangold. He had, I believe it was 47 pass blocks and didn't allow 1 pressure. So that's a nice sign from him, and that's a guy who you're looking at potentially being the replacement for Nick Mangold, because you look at Mangold's contract next year, and I believe if you cut him, I think he saves about $8.3 million. I can get the exact numbers up in a couple of seconds. So it was another good game from Wesley Johnson in relief. So those are some of the studs.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And Wesley Johnson, this is something, I don't know if you were on the line, Wes, when Gary and I brought this up many weeks ago, that we really didn't think that he was much of a downgrade to Mangold. And you have to wonder, after a performance like that, contrast that to what we saw of Mangold more recently, is he actually better? I don't know that we can say that yet, but it's certainly food for thought. When we're talking about a team that is strapped for cash next year, you look at all these guys that we could potentially cut, maybe we won't be so bad off. I mean, what is Bruno Giacometti contributing to the team at this point in time? What is Gilchrist? And he's coming off a patella tendon tear. I mean, Victor Cruz, I mean, when he had that injury, he was sidelined for probably more than a full season, a season and a half, maybe 2 seasons. It's a devastating injury. Some of these other guys, I brought up Breno already. help me out here, Joe. Who are these other guys that we can cut? Mangold. I guess you could maybe cut Marshall or trade him away if you'd wanted to.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know about Marshall, but if you're just the guys you're talking about, Gilchrist, who's been not even a decent corner in the NFL, you're hoping a guy like Doug Middleton can step up, who they just signed to the active roster a couple of days ago. If you cut him, Breno, not Ajalana, sorry. If you cut Gilchrist, Breno, Revis, and Mangold, they're saving $24.8 million or something right around there. So for a team who is $800,000 over the cap in terms of next year already right now, that would be a huge saving.
And what about Screen? What about Screen? Because I want no part of Buster Screen. It seems like Bowles loves him for whatever reason, but I hated the Screen signing from the beginning. That guy's making about $6.5 million annually for what? To get penalties every game? To wear a nice hairdo, and I don't understand what's Jets fans' infatuation with him, because he's a nice guy and you go to a Mets game and he'll take a picture with you. I mean, one of my personal buddies in real life, that is, he's sending me pictures of him at Buster Screens at a Mets game, and sometimes I wonder, some of these Jets fans, just because you take a picture with a guy and you might have met him doesn't mean that he's a good player. So, I mean, I think that Screen is kind of one of those nice players. And that kind of clouds fans' judgment. I don't know if you agree with that, but what is his cap number? We've had him for 2 full seasons now, so it's kind of be hard to imagine that he's got much guaranteed money going into this year.
Well, the thing is, I think it was this offseason to get some of the deals done because we were so strapped for cash. They actually renegotiated his deal from his original contract, so they pushed some of the money back into the last 2 years. So if you cut him next year, or this offseason, pre-June 1st, he's $5 million in dead cap and then 3.5 in savings. So it really wouldn't be that much. So is he worth, $3.5 million to us? Probably. So I see him being on this team unless you can trade him. But, like I said, I see him, but when you're talking about Gilchrist, I'm fine with him being gone as long as a guy like, or hopefully a guy like a Doug Middleton can step up, or, Breno's garbage. I have no idea why he's starting or was starting over Quale. Mangold, like you said, and that's an interesting conversation with Wesley Johnson. Wesley Johnson, who is one a free agent next year, so we have to sign him. But I think it was the Raiders game last year where he came in and everybody was saying how terrible he was and how bad he was, and me and Glenn were kind of coming out and saying, you have to give these guys time. Look at Winters. He was terrible to start his career, and now he's actually a decent to solid right guard, depending on your opinion of him. So you have to give him some time to develop. And Wesley Johnson, this isn't his first good game. Nick Mangold has missed 8 games so far this season, so he's been in six games, and he's looked solid in almost every single one of them. So at this point, Nick Mangold is for most of his career he was a top 3, top 5 center. Now he's maybe middle of the pack to below average. You factor in injuries there now. He's a bottom 10 center in the league. So you have to get over these loving the guys and all these feelings towards them and get rid of them. I hate to compare us to the Patriots, or want to be the Patriots, but a year early is definitely better than a year late for a guy like Mangold, and I think it might be his time. I think he might want to be done as well.
And that's the Bill Belichick mantra, no doubt about it. And yeah, I just double checked the numbers on Screen. You were 100% on point, and yeah, I'd have to agree with you that based on what the Jets currently have at corner, I mean, where else are you really going to go? And if you go and sign a guy in free agency, you're not going to have him for a $3.5 million number. So they're probably going to keep him for next year, unfortunately. And I think you're just going to see more of the same. And to your point about Wesley Johnson developing, other than quarterback, offensive line probably needs the most time to develop in terms of individual positions in the NFL. I mean, quarterbacks, you really don't see them hitting, their stride till probably season 3, especially now that, basically no one runs a pro-style offense in college nowadays. You have all these air raid systems and whatnot. People like Bryce Petty only throwing 4 routes in college, not going through full progressions. Quarterbacks obviously take time to develop. But offensive line, and I go back to, I think the single biggest reason why it takes them so long to develop is they don't practice the way they used to. And with offensive line, there's so much, you're physical every single play. You're touching someone every single play. You are having high impact with someone every single play. And when you don't have full contact, how are you supposed to get reps? How are you supposed to get good? How are you supposed to learn? You can be a receiver, and listen, there's nothing, even if it's a non-padded practice, you best believe that those receivers, when it's competitive, they're going to run a route 110% against their opposing competition. But if it's a non-padded practice, how are you going to go full out 100% if you're an offensive lineman? And also, that's just the gelling factor of an offensive line. And I played offensive line in high school. There's something to, okay, I got to pull and I got to be this close to my center's butt and turn up at this angle. And you can't have that unless you're practicing alongside other guys. So, offensive linemen, it takes them time all the time for them to develop. Just think about the former #1 overall pick in Eric Fisher of the Kansas City Chiefs, my dad's Kansas City Chiefs. People were saying this guy's a bust. Up until last year, he had a pretty good year. And what happened? The Kansas City Chiefs awarded him with a brand new contract, despite the fact that he was pretty darn bad his first couple of years. So we can see linemen make this turn. He's still young by offensive lineman standards, Wesley Johnson. So it's not shocking to me that he has made a turn in his career.
Yeah, look at our boy Vlad Dukas versus Ndamukong Suh last week, right? He's a fantastic offensive lineman. He was a great pick when you take him in the second round. But 100% kidding with that. Vlad Dukas is still a scrub. But yeah, that's the point. A lot of Jets fans are saying, and listen, I'm not saying that the Jets have a great depth at offensive line, because I don't think they necessarily do. But a lot of fans, they have no depth. They're terrible, blah blah blah. And then Ajalana came in, and he's playing terribly at left tackle. I cannot emphasize that word enough, terribly. But right tackle, he was okay. Quale's okay at right tackle. Wesley Johnson, everybody thought he was atrocious last year, is playing pretty solid and didn't let up one pressure last game. I know he's playing the 49ers, but still, some of these guys.
49ers actually don't have a bad D-line. That's not their weakness.
Got Buckner and some of those guys. Yeah.
Yeah,
but
that's the strength of their defense. Sorry. They have, DeForest Buckner, 7th overall pick. Eric Armstead, 15th overall pick. Glenn Dorsey's good in the run game. I mean, he's a former top 4 pick himself in his own right. And then I think they have a couple other guys too, but their linebackers and their secondary is really their weak spot. But but exactly. So a lot of fans are saying that we have no depth, but we've actually seen some depth now. In terms of starters, the Jets need a whole bunch. They need a left tackle next year. They potentially need a right tackle. I'm not necessarily comfortable with Ajalana or Qual at starting the entire year, but in terms of depth, if you're looking at Wesley Johnson, Ben Ajalana, Quale, and maybe a guy like Shell develops as a guard/tackle, we have some decent depth there. You just need to work on some of the starters. And then in terms of the duds in this game, so you said you wanted to hear a little bit about that. I'm not going to go too much into it because we only have a couple of minutes. But the run defense was absolutely terrible. 123 yards in the first half to Carlos Hyde. At the end of the game, he had 17 carries for 193 yards, 11.4 yards per carry, which is just an absolute joke. The entire team coming to start out the game was just no energy, no fight, no dog in them. They just didn't want to be there at all, and something woke them up at halftime. So that was good to see, but the first half was embarrassing, being down 17-3 to the 1-11 49ers at that point. So that was pretty bad. Too.
And then
missed field goal should have been worse.
Yeah, 2. Dawson had 2 missed field goals. And then I talked about Ajalana. I think he gave up at least 2 or 3 sacks that game. The entire offensive line in terms of pass blocking, other than Wesley Johnson and maybe Carpenter, were pretty bad. But I think Ajalana was a main cog in that because he's getting beat play after play after play. So they definitely need a replacement there for Clady and DeBershall Ferguson retiring a year ago, because Ajalana does not have that at this point. He's not a good left tackle. Maybe an okay right tackle, but you talk about a switch from right tackle to left tackle. Left tackle is a whole new position on the offensive line, so he's not suited for it.
Yeah, I would say that Ajalana was better than Giacomini at right tackle. I mean, Giacomini he's just awful. The dude is just useless, and he just looks like a big doofus. I can't stand that guy.
Yeah.
But
I've called him out.
Go ahead.
I've called him out a couple of times in the show. Just some of the curse words I yell at that guy during the game. is pretty embarrassing for my mom and for God for creating me. But dude, and it's not even like he's bad and he's just getting beat. He gets beat and then he gets a personal penalty for throwing a guy or pushing a guy over a pile or going a little bit too long. So he's bad between the whistles and he's bad after the whistles for the team. So he needs to go. I think they saved 4.3 if they cut him. So
that's a no-brainer. Should have been cut this past offseason. And you have to wonder, why does he do that? Like, I think he feels bad that he got his quarterback demolished. So like he's got to act like a tough guy, like, oh, I do care about this team, so let me go away and act like a fake tough guy and push the guy in the back or throw him down to the ground when he's not looking. Something stupid like that to prove that he cares, to prove that he's some tough guy and that he's giving effort out there. Because sometimes they're like, like when an offensive lineman gives up a sack, they just stand there. They don't bother to help up the quarterback. And that kind of pisses me off too. But not as much as acting like a fake tough guy. So there's no doubt that he cares. Yeah. He just sucks. And, he cares a little bit too much to the detriment of his team when he gets those personal fouls like that.
Yeah, and, we both played. You played in college. I played in high school, 4 years, and I played, safety, corner, and running back and stuff like that. If I got beat on a pass, the guy clearly beat me. It was my fault. He didn't get up from after he got tackled. I didn't tackle him again or throw him to the ground and get a personal penalty. I never did anything like that. So that's not an excuse. And you've heard me say he is a fake tough guy. He thinks he's cool. I gotta get back at him. Oh, I'm so tough. I'm so good. When really he's absolute garbage. He really is one of the worst, if not the worst, right tackle in the NFL.
You blew it! You blew it!
No doubt about it.
Was that on purpose, or was that directed towards Giacomini or towards me?
That was directed towards you because your name is Joe Blewett, and there's no one else named Joe Blewett. So that is your own personal sound clip.
I believe there is a race car driver named Joe Blewett, and I also believe that there is a garbage company named after my name. So I share the name. It's very rare. But
hey, I don't want to be blamed for you being late to your own show. So why don't you get the heck out of here?
All right, I will do it, man.
But it was a great call. Follow Joe on Twitter at JoeRB31. That's correct, right, Joe?
Yes, sir, it is.
And Jet Nation Radio on Twitter, and go follow his show, Jet Nation Radio, best Jets podcast out there. Take care, Joe. Thanks for calling.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
All right, so that's Joe Blewett, and hopefully we got him out of here on time because he's up against the numbers. He's about to start his show in about 2 minutes, and he also does a live podcast. Not all these things are live, and boy, oh boy, am I lonely out here right now. There's no one else. There's no Gary. Gary had to take care of an emergency. Please keep Gary in your thoughts, no doubt about it. I don't want to disclose the matter over the air because I don't know that he wants me to do that, but he would appreciate your thoughts for sure. Oh, speaking of, there he is. Gary, I don't know if you caught any of that, but I was just actually speaking about you.
I hope all in good terms, Kyle. All in good terms.
Good. So everything worked out nicely?
I mean, long into the short, it's going to run me about $1,000 to $1,200. Yes, it's going for surgery on Friday.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, not a good time for money to be spent like that, but it has to get done.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about that off air, but yeah, sorry to hear that. Anyway, it's good that you joined me right at the ideal time because literally it was caller after caller after caller after caller, which was good to keep the back and forth of the show going. And I was probably just going to have a big old monologue, but now that you're here, we can swing some things back and forth. And it's actually an ideal time too, because we really didn't touch on the Buffalo Bills. Talked about the Patriots, had a Patriots guest on, talked about the Dolphins, a couple of Dolphins guests on, and we just had a couple of Jets guests on. But now let's talk about the Buffalo Bills. So Gary, what do you make of this report coming from Bills Fanatics BF? Now, they are Bills fans. Let's just say that. They're not you could say a beat reporter that has a specific agenda where they constantly say something negative about the team, a la Mike Rodak or Manish Mehta. But they have said, and I'm going to go read parts of that report, that the Buffalo Bills are at level 10 in terms of dysfunction. If Terry Bagula can figure out and understand the criteria that follows, he can get the Bills back on the right track. At the moment, there are, quote, too many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak. Rumors state the general manager, Doug Whaley, has not been able to choose his head coach since becoming the Bills manager. That's an issue. And then they go on to say that Doug Whaley is not seeing eye to eye with Rex Ryan and Russ Brandon. Russ Brandon, who is the president, does not see eye to eye with Whaley, being president of the Sabres, as he is too close to Pagula, and he could be giving Terry bad information for Bills moves, which in turn doesn't allow Pagula and Whaley to see eye to eye. And then Rex Ryan does not see eye to eye with Whaley and fire Greg Roman prematurely after 2 games. And then they go on to say in their final paragraph that the Bills need one voice in capital letters, which is honestly, that's the same thing that I've been saying with the Jets, and that's the same thing that we see with the New England Patriots. So, Gary, you being the Bills fan of the show, what do you make of all that?
Coming from a business background, I'm all on board with empowering people to do their job. So let the coaches coach, the managers get the personnel and the players, and the owners own, but not have all those guys do each other's jobs or help with or have a say in each other's jobs. I'm all about empowering the people you put in place to do their job. I don't like micromanaging. So if that is going on, then if there is any validity to the report, and I'm assuming there is, because BF Bills Fanatics is a pretty good source to go to if you're not looking for biased news. If you're unbiased, they're pretty right in the middle as far as they're fans, but they're very critical of the team and they give it to you straight. So it's so tough to say, Kyle, because we see this all the time. When they're riding that 2-game winning streak high, all of a sudden everything's all well and good. But now that all these are coming out, when the Bills are on a bit of a skid, so.
Yeah, that's what I found really interesting. Is why does this stuff always come to a head when things are really bad?
Yeah, that's what I never get. It's like everything's peachy. This stuff should be coming out when they're doing good. None of this, you never hear any of this stuff. So now all of a sudden it's it. So
I think part of it might be like, let's say you're a beat reporter or whatever, and you go and you put out some kind of story like this, and then the team goes on an amazing run and makes it to the playoffs and everything is all well and good. You look like an idiot because you're putting out false information, yet the team is going on and they're winning and the chemistry looks like it's through the roof.
Right.
And then you're the one that has egg on your face. But when the team's looking bad, you look like the guy that's first on the scene. You're breaking the news that everyone wants to hear, such juicy news. They want to hear, what's at the root of the dysfunction.
Yeah, and for me to sit here and talk to you right now from my house and say that I was expecting this all year long, an 8-8 season, maybe 9-7 at best, which both look obtainable. But I was never expecting the Bills were going to be, 11 wins or 14 wins. I never expected that. So to me, none of this really holds any weight in my point. I see people fire Rex and, bench Tyrod and all this other stuff. I get all it. I get Bill's frustrations. We want it all now, but I always said that this team is not playoff caliber this season. They're a middle-of-the-pack team, an 8-8, 9-7 at best team. I said that all year long. And I stuck to those words all season. And, that's pretty much where we're at. Now, are the Bills missing a few pieces? Yes. I don't think they have I think they have a good roster. I don't know if it's the best in the NFL, but there is serious question marks on the Bills' ability to stay healthy. And there's serious question marks about Rex Ryan's ability to coach. And like I said, the thing that's most discouraging to me is that I saw growth in Rex Ryan as a coach, the Seattle game, and many other games where he was able to make adjustments in the second half. And now you look at the Oakland game, you look at this Pittsburgh game that just happened, that looked like that completely went out the window. So now I'm questioning Rex Ryan's growth because it looks like he's just reverted back to his old ways. And that is totally discouraging as a Bills fan. Doug Whaley, I still got a lot of faith in Doug Whaley, Kyle. I got to say that he's made some pretty good deals. And he's brought in some pretty good personnel. I don't know what his relationship is like with Rex behind closed doors. All accounts, they say it's good. There's reports out here that are leaking that it's bad. I don't know what's happening, Kyle, with the Buffalo Bills. And, we were all ready to throw egg on their face the first two losses after they fired Greg Roman. And it seems like, Anthony Lynn had quite a lot of success in this offense. So at this point, I don't know. I still am in the boat of saying give Rex one more year. There has to be changes, whether it's at quarterback, whether it has to be in personnel. There has to be a change, but I'm still in that boat of giving him one more year. If he completely bombs after next year, send him packing along with his F-350.
So if you could have one or the other, Tyrod or Rex Ryan, you would choose Rex then?
At this point, yes. Kyle, I think Tyrod is a serviceable quarterback. He needs a lot around him to win ball games. He's not that. And the stats show that, Kyle. I think
I agree with that.
The Bills are a team that are not meant to play from behind. When they have a lead, they could pour it on opponents. We've seen it in the San Francisco game. We've seen it in the LA Rams game. We've seen it in games where when they're on someone's throat, the Arizona Cardinals games, they could pour it on. When they're playing catch-up, they're a totally different team. And Tyrod is not that guy. He's never been that guy, even in college, Kyle. He's been an excellent guy to trounce teams, but he's never been the guy that – look at the Stanford game when Virginia Tech played Stanford in the bowl game. He was never that guy to mount comebacks. And, you look at quarterbacks, let's say even Eli Manning, for example. Well, Kyle, I don't think you would say he's elite, would you?
I never would have said that. I don't care what Justin Tuck says. You can't spell elite without Eli. I mean, I was never saying that.
But you could see when the Giants are down, Eli's still able to drive his team down the field and put points up.
Not so much this year. In fact, they've been winning.
You know what? I just had an interesting conversation. Ever since he's went to that West Coast offense, he's been running that same Kevin Gilbride type of offense where he's able to mount a ton of points. Now he runs the West Coast, and he's not the same quarterback. So I think it's more the system than Eli Manning. But still, Eli Manning could sling the ball and get you down the field and put up points. He'll throw an interception once in a while. But Tyrod's not that guy. Tyrod's a good guy when the game is up and the defense is playing well.
Yeah, and let's go in a little bit deeper into that. I mean, it's obvious that would make sense because, Tyrod, he's a guy that he's going to naturally improve your run game because of his ability that he could always boot out. Like, okay, you run a stretch play, you're a defense, you're not going to be chasing that ball carrier because you still got to keep a guy on the other side that's got to be looking for Tyrod because Tyrod can always scoot out of the backfield. You run an option play. If your quarterback's a legit threat to actually run the ball, that's another thing that you got to look for. So running quarterbacks always improve a running game in total. They make it easier for backs, and obviously if you can scramble or run the ball yourself, that's also going to pad your stats. So when you're ahead, it becomes easier to run the ball. So to your point, yes, Tyrod is pretty good when he's working with a lead. But when you all of a sudden you got to go 5 wide or 4 wide receivers, and you got to go through multiple progressions, well, we've said this since last year. Tyrod's really never been that guy to go through multiple progressions. And I'm a fan of him for certain things that he does. I would never say that he's an elite quarterback, but in my mind, you can do much worse than him at quarterback. And if you do have a pretty good team, I think you could do some things.
Right.
Listen, you put Tyrod Taylor behind that Denver Broncos team last year with that defense, that guy, you could have won the Super Bowl with Tyrod. There's no doubt about it in my mind. But he's not a top 10 quarterback. He's not a top 15 quarterback. Probably not. But is he a bottom 20 or, is he top 20? I think you could say that he is in my mind. And if the Bills do end up parting ways with him, if the numbers were not crazy, I would take him as a Jets fan. because we wouldn't have to give up any draft picks like we might have to for Romo, and he doesn't have the injury concerns that Romo does, and he's obviously a lot younger than Romo, but we don't have the team around him that's going to make us win. I'm not getting all jaded and confused like that.
Yeah. I think that what will likely happen is maybe both stay. I mean, really, if you think about it, the contract situation, like our good buddy Miguel pointed out, is not backbreaking. I think the Bills are going to dump a lot of cap into bringing in what they did last year, 1-year contract free agents that are going to try to just get the Bills over the hump. I think it's going to be long term. It's going to hurt the organization. As long as they could draft well, they'll be all right. And I think they are having some good drafts. I think John Miller's had a pretty good season as a guard. Ronald Darby, though having a pretty down year comparison to last year, is still pretty decent corner. You look at Shaq Lawson's contributing. We don't know what we got out of Ragland yet. But, for the most part, the Bills have some good key pieces that are young. Kevon Seymour. Jonathan Williams has had some playing time and shown some burst. I think the Bills, as long as they could draft okay, they got to bring in a lot of what Stanley John would say is contract killers. You sign these 1-year vets and hope that almost with the intent that they're going to get you over the hump and the younger guys could develop behind them. It's a gamble. It's a gamble. The Jets did it. I faulted them, but the thing the Jets didn't do, they didn't have good drafts. Mike McCann, he brought in these veterans last season.
Tannenbaum. Are you talking about this year, or are you talking about back?
I'm talking about last year with Mike McCann. They got them 10 wins. They brought in some veterans like Brandon Marshall. You hope like a guy like Devin Smith could eventually replace someone like a Marshall or Decker in the lineup, because those guys are a little bit older. He hasn't panned out. I'm hoping that the Bills, much like you see with Lorenzo Alexander, Shaq Lawson will be his eventual replacement. I'm hoping they can do that with some veterans next year as well. But they have to continue to draft young guys that are going to be capable starters. There's so much, Kyle. This is what losing teams talk about every year. You and I always talk about these same conversations. How do you, when you don't have Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, how do you make it work?
Yep. And let's stick with the whole Tyrod and what's the alternative with him. I'm definitely with you in that I think he should be back with the Bills. In terms of quarterback contracts, you could do so much worse in this league.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt about it.
Next year, he's figuring to be the 20th highest paid quarterback next year. I think that's right.
And that's right around where maybe his skill level is.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like – and listen, Anthony Lynn has alluded that, Cardell Jones is that type of guy you want to keep on the runway. I think there is some things you could develop into Cardell Jones that maybe if Tyrod doesn't pan out after next season, you could start looking that way. He's not ready to start. Bills fans are pounding for him to get in the lineup. I think that would be a detriment.
That would be idiotic because Cardell's got the big arm.
Let me ask you a question, Kyle. You're a Jets fan. If you were a Bills fan, hypothetically, and Tyrod gets you to 9-7, winning season, they may not be good. Because let me tell you something. Bills fans 2 years ago were content with having Kyle Orton come in as their starter the following year after he led the team to 9-7. Would you be happy with that 9-7 record?
Would I be happy with a 9-7 record?
Saying, would you be happy if that guy would build off of that?
I mean, I guess he got me to 8 wins last year, and if he got me to 9 wins this year, I would see improvement in terms of QB wins. I would be somewhat optimistic that he can continue to develop because this is only his second year starting. And, quarterbacks in terms of amount of playing time on the field, usually it's their third year when you see that big jump.
Yeah.
So he's not at that yet. Now, how much more can he grow? We don't know that yet.
Yeah, that's the most discouraging thing that you just said, because we don't know how much he can grow. One thing I could say, I love the ability that Tyrod, like you said, he keeps teams honest in the running game, especially that read option that they like running.
and he's not reckless with the ball, Gary. He's not Mark Sanchezing it where he's fumbling it for a touchdown.
That's the biggest key right there is he doesn't give up a lot of turnovers. He does not turn the ball over. And I think as a Bills fan, we've been used to the Fitzpatricks, the Trent Edwards, the even EJ Manuel, even though he has a better touch, he has a good touchdown interception ratio that's more in favor of the touchdowns. He's still – these guys, no one has done it better than Tyrod in the last 10 years. You can honestly say that any Bills quarterback, they've been given the ball a lot more than Tyrod's ever by percentage. It's just not even close.
I mean, Gary, turnovers are the single biggest thing that's going to either get you to win games or lose games, in my humble opinion. And I have just raw data right off the top of my head that I'm going to spew off. First things first is when the Patriots were playing the Bengals, we were privy to an interesting statistic that we did state on the show, and I'll state it again. And that is that, Marvin Lewis, since he's been the coach, because he's the second longest tenured coach in the NFL right now, next to Bill Belichick. Since he began coaching with them, and since in that same time frame, obviously Belichick was the coach of the Patriots. The Patriots had a plus 150-something turnover margin, meaning they forced 150-some more turnovers in that 10-plus year span than their opponents. And Marvin Lewis of the Bengals, obviously he's had a lot of winning records over the last 5 years. They were like plus 50. But the Patriots are that team that wins every single year, but they're plus 150-something in the turnover margin. And here's the statistic from Rich Cimini about turnovers. Now, I'm just pulling this up at random. I had this actually stored on my phone. But this is from September of 2014. So not the beginning of last football season, but the beginning of the previous one before that. And the Jets were in a 3-year playoff drought at that point. And he said, why have the Jets missed the playoffs the last 3 years? They've had 100 turnovers, meaning they've given up 100 turnovers, which ranked 32nd in the league, dead last. They had a negative 31 turnover margin, which was 32nd in the league. And then they had negative 131 points off the turnover margin, which also ranked 32nd in the league. So the data suggests that turnovers just have the ability to destroy a team. So, yes, we understand that Tyrod is not going to be that guy to pull you back from 21-0 and pull you back to a victory, even though we've kind of seen him make valiant comebacks at certain points in time. He's not going to do that with consistency. He's not going to be that guy that's going to drop back and air it out 40 times in a game. But you could do a heck of a lot worse at quarterback. And my thing is this, Gary. Yes, you're going to have to absorb a big guaranteed number if you pick up his option for next year. But beyond that, let's say Tyrod doesn't work out next year. Beyond that, you only have $3.25 million guaranteed beyond 2017, which is nothing.
Yeah, and trust me, Kyle, the smart people up in the Bills organizations, they know that. They know that, hey, you know what? If it doesn't work out the next year, you got to figure that my money is on it. Both Rex and Tyrod will both be back in, and they will be attached to the hip. If they don't get it done next season, they're both gone. And there's no doubt in my mind that that's the case. They're almost going into it together. They're going to go out to it together. And I guarantee this, when Jim Omerdorff and Doug Whaley presented Tyrod with that contract, they probably told Rex Ryan, maybe not this year, but next year, hey, we're going to – if you don't get it with him, you're both going to be gone. So I pretty much guarantee that that's the scenario. Bills fans don't want to hear it, but it is what it is, If you're looking for another article on the negativity and the, quote, dysfunction in the Bills organization, Tim Graham, who I don't really know. I mean, he seems – obviously he's very punchy in his writing and he's very sarcastic and whatever you want to call him. I don't really know if he's a Bills basher. I don't know if Bills fans would consider him that, but this piece is obviously not speaking too favorably about the Bills organization, but he's talking about how Russ Brandon – he's still in that president position, and he once was the general manager. And he says that, quote,
his bio in the Bills media guide suspiciously omits any reference to him being GM and that he was 58 and 83 during that span. He also talks about, how Doug Whaley, when he took over in 2010 to be Buddy Nix's successor, Buffalo is 45 and 63 within that span. There's a couple other things in there. He talks about the forcing of E.J. Manuel onto Doug Whaley and how that was kind of, not really Whaley's doing. That was kind of dubbed on him. I thought one thing was pretty interesting was apparently it was Russ Brandon. He was supposed to be out of football decisions at this point. He's just supposed to look at the business side of things, because obviously he manages the Sabres as well. And in the Sports Illustrated feature, I believe that was written by Jenny Vrentas, who she used to be of NFL.com, and prior to that, she used to be with NJ.com. She said that Russ Brandon gave Rex Ryan tips on how to schmooze over Bills owner Terry Pegula by texting Ryan that the owner, quote, loves red wine. So supposedly he's supposed to be out of the football operations, according to Tim Graham, yet he kind of still finding his way to get his way into things.
Yeah, I mean, you could be a fan of a certain candidate. I get that. I mean, think about it. During that time, Kyle, the names that were out there were Chip Kelly. Actually, Chip Kelly was already a coach by then, but Todd Bowles. There's certain names out there, but in my opinion, Rex probably was one of the better options that season coming in that coaching campaign. One can argue what's his face down in Atlanta.
Shanahan. No, Dan Quinn. Dan
Quinn. I kept thinking Gus Bradley because they're both bold and coming from Seattle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right now, there's so much things that the Bills have to. I can honestly say though, Kyle, they're still a young team. You look like you're going to get Ragland back next year healthy. You still got Sammy Watkins. Tyrod's young. Their offensive line, for the most part, is pretty young. So I still think that the Bills can improve roster-wise and give Rex the best chance possible. There's no excuse if they bring up that roster a little bit. They will have at least a chance. Next year you have an easy schedule. You play the NFC South with Tampa and Atlanta and Carolina and New Orleans. It's right now it's tough. It's tough for Bills fans. It's a tough pill to swallow. We've been out of it for so long. We've been dreaming for a playoff berth, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen yet again. So,
Gary, what do you make of what was said? What was tweeted out by the heck is his name? Ross Tucker, who former football player, former offensive lineman, now turned sports broadcaster. Now he's saying this on behalf of SEC Booger, who I don't even know who that is. I guess he's some guy who hosts the SEC network and Sirius XM NFL, covers the SEC, that, quote, speaking about Marcel Darius, he's too fat, he's out of shape, he thinks he can pick his spots and get 10 sacks and go to the Pro Bowl. Now, obviously, Marcel Darius was in the news this offseason for all the wrong reasons. Now, he's come back and he's certainly flashed at certain points in time. There's no doubt about it. But then there are certain times he's also disappeared a little bit. And here, we see Mike Pouncey easily get to the second level, and Eric Turner, our Bills film analyst extraordinaire, has, pointed out that Marcel really is not getting his hands up here. And, although he's not getting really necessarily bullied back himself, if he gets his hands up, maybe he makes Pouncey's job a lot more difficult getting to the second level.
Absolutely. And yeah, that's disheartening. Everyone has a job to do, and definitely by him at least clogging that gap. First of all, you don't know his assignment, but I'm assuming that either way, Pouncey's not supposed to come free in that 3-4. What's most disheartening is number 92, Adolphus Washington in this play, Kyle. He seems like he's more concerned about shoving Marcus Gilbert in the backfield, almost like that Flip McGawan mentality of beating the guy in front and making the play. And that, to me, is just, that falls on John Blake as far as the defensive line coach is. You got to tell your guy to make a play. It's one thing to clog up, but a runner like Le'Veon Bell, Kyle, he's so patient. He doesn't just get up the hole. It's one thing you get a runner like I'm trying to think of someone who's just a smash mouth runner who just tries to run forward.
Smash mouth, run it forward type of guy. Frank Gore, he cuts a little bit.
No, but someone who doesn't just wait for the play to develop. Someone who's just looking to get up the field. I'm gonna say like a Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon's like plays like that where he just tries to scream up the field.
Who also used to do that? I think it was Sean Green was so famous for
that.
He would just run into his lineman's back all the time. Yeah,
and that play works if you get a running back like that. But Le'Veon Bell, look at Adolphus just is so concerned about moving Marcus Gilbert in the backfield. He could have made the play easily on this. He's right there, and he just is not disengaging his blocker. It's just that comes down to fundamentals, Kyle. And it comes down and, that play should have been a negative play. But, credit where credit's due. Le'Veon Bell, patient runner. If he would have started moving his feet right away upfield, he would have been stopped for a negative yardage. But he stood there. He waited for the rookie, Adolphus Washington, to just blow right by him, and he cut to his right, and he gets up the field for 5 yards. So –
yeah.
But that it boils down to that is just bad coaching right there. And I could say that's a rookie that he's talking to, but right there and then and there, you look up, it's just that nothing pisses me more when someone could have been tackled for a loss, and that's.
What do you think about this one right here? This one, this is just an easy touchdown. Bell's basically walking into the end zone, but you're looking at Preston Brown and the linebackers. They bite hard on the counter. Big Ben, he opens up clockwise. The fullback leads that way, and then, bam, he kicks out. And this is awesome execution by the Steelers right here.
Yeah.
But, man, oh, man, did the Bills really get worked on this one. Who got washed down? Was that Zach Brown that really got washed down in the inside?
It looks like it. Number 53,
yeah. That's bad.
Yeah, he got –
I
can tell you this right now. Had that been number 91, Manny Lawson was so good at ripping through a block, and he was so quick. He was quick enough to cut him right there, but he would never let the guy cross his face.
Mm-hmm.
Zach Brown is obviously he's not as gifted with enough length like Manny Lawson, but still.
What do you think about Brandon Spikes kind of giving a little late hit to Le'Veon Bell as he's already crossed the end zone?
Yeah, Brandon's never one from shying away from contact, even if it's not necessary. So
that reminds me of when we played the San Diego Chargers back in the 2009 season in the playoffs. And speaking of Sean Green, who would have thought we brought up Sean Green twice in like a span of 5 minutes on this show? Sean Green trucked Eric Weddle, ran 53 yards or whatever it was for a touchdown. He's already been in the end zone for like a good solid second, and Cromartie just comes from behind and hits him. Kind of reminds me of that a little bit, if you remember the play that I'm talking about.
I remember it. And then a year later, he's a Jet, right?
Yeah, that's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Very disheartening game to watch. And of course, I had the Deuce text me. If no one at home knows who the Deuce is, that's our cousin Vinny. I saw him the night before, and we're making arrangements whether we're going to watch the game. Our cousin's a diehard Steelers fan. He's like, the game shouldn't have been that close, and I texted him back. I said 200%.
There's nothing you can really say. Another thing that came to light, pointed out by Eric Turner, he said, according to Football Outsiders, that on 10.3% of the Buffalo Bills' defensive snaps, they're giving up a broken tackle, at least one broken tackle on a given play. Here's a 3rd and 10. Ben Roethlisberger goes to the check down, And they have Le'Veon, but they just don't seem to wrap him up right here. And, I went and I retweeted what Eric said. And one of our good followers on Twitter, I believe his name is Eric Harris, if I'm remembering correctly off the top of my head, he actually said that number seems low. Seems like the Bills actually have a worse percentage of giving up broken tackles.
Yeah. And I tell you right now, this is not going to fly in the NFL. And listen, you could blame the coaches on this, but this has nothing to do with the coaches, Kyle. This has to do with the players. This is on the players right there. Their willingness to fly to the ball and make the tackle and wrap them up and bring them down and bring the wood, so to speak. That falls on the players. So you could scheme all you want. Right here, the Bills should have been getting off the field, and they didn't. So,
yeah, that's why so many people. The Bills look like they didn't want to come out and blame it on the coach. He needs to fire the players up. I mean, Gary, I personally, I don't think I ever really needed to be fired up playing high school football games in front of a crowd of maybe a couple hundred people or whatever it was.
Yeah,
these guys are getting paid millions of dollars. Their next contract is always on the line. Always on the line. They're not guaranteed a tremendous amount of money. They're playing in front of however many thousands of people just in the stadium and then all the other people watching nationally and locally. If you have a tough time motivating yourself, because, listen, if you go out there and you play soft, that could be the end of your career right there. I mean, you're going against a 200-something pound, 300-something pound animal that could destroy you. If you have trouble motivating yourself, that's a big problem. So I don't know how much of that you could thrust on the coach. And, a lot of people are pointing out saying, oh, and Garrett, listen, I mean, that I was not sad when Rex Ryan left. I defended him until the end, but I knew that it was time to go. I also told you that I wasn't scared when the Bills hired him. So, if they do move on from him, I'm not going to necessarily criticize them vehemently, but I'm also not going to blame Rex Ryan if the players came out a little bit flat in terms of their intensity level.
Agreed. This is Buffalo Bill football right here, Kyle. Snowy, cold weather. This is where the Bills should be at their best. And, obviously this is Pittsburgh weather too, but, at the end of the day, Kyle, they should have been fired. Their playoff lives are on the line. They got a red-hot Pittsburgh team that's coming in there. They could have made a statement, and they didn't. And, they gave up big plays, but here's a play, and you could count a number of them where they could have stopped Le'Veon Bell. And the other one I pointed out too at Adolphus Washington, you're so concerned about beating the guy up in front of you rather than just looking where the ball carrier is making the tackle. And I've seen that so many times in professional football where it's so macho where you just got to – and it comes down to fundamentals. It comes down to focus. And it comes down to, the ability to want it. You got to want it. That's what I'm saying. Give me 1 second, Kyle.
Yeah, go ahead. So, while Gary goes and does what he needs to do, I'm going to go ahead.
I'm back.
He's back already. Gary, we really didn't spend much time talking about Bryce Petty last week other than saying that he sucks. Now he's seeming to be a little bit of the talk of the town, starting to grab a little bit of the back pages of the New York newspapers and stuff. And, Gary, I think we need to just temper people's expectations a little bit about what Bryce Petty can be. Just because you came back, you beat San Francisco in San Francisco on the road despite being down late doesn't mean that all of a sudden you're a gamer at quarterback. It doesn't all of a sudden mean that you're good. Let's go off and let's start with the very first play of the offense in this game. And it was disaster for the New York Jets right from the very beginning. And let me just pull that up in 1 second. So here we're looking at Bryce Petty. We saw kind of the same thing towards the end of the Colts game. So Bryce Petty, bam, predetermined that throw. Doesn't even look – I mean, where he's going because he immediately snaps the ball and goes there. Problem is, he doesn't have a lot of velocity on the pass. And I said this, Bryce Petty only clocked in 53 miles an hour at the combine. So it's a low velocity pass. Obviously, this is something that the corner saw on film because Bryce Petty made a very similar pass that was picked off by the Colts on Monday Night Football the previous week. And he just jumps this route all from the very get-go.
Yeah, you know what? That's one thing I noticed. I watched this game in great length, and I said to my girlfriend, I was like, wow, Bryce Petty's got kind of a he kind of throws ducks, kind of what Peyton Manning was throwing last year. There's not a lot of trajectory on the ball. It's very wobbly, and it takes forever to get there. And it makes it very easy for the defense to make a play on the ball. And you see number 25, he had all the time in the world. I mean, look how far back he is. He's able to make a break and intercept that.
Yeah, he's a solid 10 yards off the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, so and like I said, Bryce went there immediately. It's not like he tried to look off a safety or anything or make someone bite on a play. He snapped it and he threw it to this guy, but he had time to get there. It was.
And the thing about this that annoys you is, people say, oh, well, he's sat and he's had time to develop, but who has he developed behind? It's Fitzpatrick, and we said this ad nauseum. We've had Edward Gorelick, who's got all the statistics and stuff to back this up. Ryan Fitzpatrick, in terms of quarterbacks that predetermine throws and go to one guy, make up their mind before a play, Fitzpatrick does it at the top of the league. And Bryce Petty's been learning behind that guy. So, yeah, he came from a raw college system and needed to learn the pro game. Who did he learn it from? That quarterback who is theoretically smart. Yes, he's got the Harvard education, but definitely doesn't play like a smart player on the field. And I will say this. I'm not going to totally knock Bryce Petty's arm. The reason I'm pointing this as is it pisses me off that there are some Jets fans out there that saying the kid's got a gun for an arm. He's got a cannon.
See,
no, he doesn't. No, he doesn't.
That's exactly what I thought, too. That was the perception I thought, Adam. And I watched this game and I said, not only that, it's Anderson, who's definitely a deep threat, Kyle, for you guys. He misfired so many times on Anderson. And Anderson was getting open. Keep in mind, San Fran has one of the worst secondaries in the league, but still, it just like this guy could not hit the broadside of a barn door like the saying goes. But I got to tell you this, Kyle. For all the bad that we're talking about Petty, I was very encouraged if I'm a Jets fan. There is something there. Without a doubt, there is something there. You look at the end of that game, he was able to make a comeback on them. He obviously has a lot of passion about the game. He gets fired up. And he made some cool key throws, too, in that game that I was very encouraged by. So, and this is what we were saying all along. For Todd Bowles, the season's over with. There's no reason to start Fitzpatrick. You're not going to have him after the season, but you're going to have Hackenberg and you're going to have Bryce Petty. Let's see what these two kids got. And especially this kid right here, because who knows, Kyle, maybe the Jets decide to hit the nuclear reset button, which I believe they are, Kyle, no doubt about it.
I hope so.
I don't think Forte will be on the roster next year. I don't think Mangold will be on the roster next year. I don't think Giacomini. I don't think a lot of these older veterans, Darrelle Revis, even David Harris might be a cap casualty. Gilchrist is definitely out.
I could see all those guys, but I could see Forte coming back. But all those other guys.
If I'm a Jet fan after seeing Bilal Powell run, and I don't think Bilal Powell is a bell cow, I think Bilal Powell is a step up from Forte.
I agree with you 100%. Thing is, Bilal Powell has a bit of an injury history in his own right, and obviously it's a multi-back league, so you want to have depth there.
I get that, but Forte gives you almost zero. I mean,
7-on-7.
I get that.
You're going to see
why justify the salary? That would be mine.
I mean, here's what we saw. I mean, this is Bryce Petty in the Monday night game, and I get it. He's going against a defense that's just playing prevent. He's got to score, so he's trying not to take the underneath stuff. Give him kudos that he's trying to take some shots downfield. But Bryce Petty has an extremely tough time reading defenses, and he does this all the time. I've seen him play 3 actual meaningful games now. He double clutches.
Did you see the coverage, Kyle? Name me a wide receiver that's open.
I get that, but you could go to the check down here with Forte, but he took 6 sacks in this game against the 49ers. I don't think the 49ers –
And Kyle, plenty more to come,
Because he plays like this. And, I could go to the other interception too. I'm going to pull up that other interception.
But let's also point out that the Jets' offensive line has to be one of the bottom 10 in the league. Even James Carpenter, Kyle. Everyone hypes James Carpenter up, Kyle. I watched him on film. He got beat bad by that Buckner kid on a number of plays. You could see he just did a swim move and got around him. Like, he's a big guy, and when he whiffs, he whiffs.
He does, for sure.
You know, Ajalon is terrible. Giacomini's terrible. Now he's on IR.
Thank God.
Quality's not good. Wesley Johnson, Kyle. Wesley Johnson may be the best offensive lineman the Jets have. Him and Winters, I think, especially Wesley Johnson, I think he's an upgrade over Mangold at this point in their career. So,
you know, Gary, Joe Blewett came on for a good 20-something minutes, and we were speaking ad nauseum. Particularly, we spent the most time talking about the Jets' offensive line, and we said many of the same things that you said. And, Gary, here's another – tell me how similar this looks to that interception against the 49ers, Gary.
Yeah. Kyle, no one's saying he's a perfect quarterback. You know, there's a lot that he has to go with. But no one can deny from last year to this year there is a step up from him. And you know, I think that the more you work on this kid, not saying he never maybe will be a starter, but you might have an NFL caliber quarterback on your roster right here. And I still think that there needs to be a veteran they have to bring in or draft someone very high. But I still like what you're getting out of Petty, especially being a 4th-round pick. There is something that you can work with, and possibly one day he could be the number 2 quarterback in your roster. Right now he's playing the number 1, but as far as being a quality backup, Petty might be able to give you that. And that's, I think, his ceiling. I think that you look at him, trying to – maybe a Kyle Orton is someone to compare him to. I don't think he has quite the arm as Kyle Orton, but what you would like a Kyle Orton to be on your roster.
What round was Orton drafted in?
I believe he was the 3rd-round pick, Kyle, at Purdue. Now I'm curious. I got to –
Good old Uncle Rico. And on the screen right now is what Bryce Petty gives you that Ryan Fitzpatrick just doesn't give you.
Right.
And I mean, even this pass, it's not thrown. It's not a Colin Kaepernick laser. I mean, if you were to clock the miles per hour on this ball, it's going to be significantly less than a Kaepernick pass. But he does have some type of touch when he throws the ball deep downfield. Now, whether or not he's going to throw it and always hit the guy in stride, that's a different story. But he does have some type of touch on the passes. Now, the last interception that I showed against the Colts, you know, that was another one of those passes. You know, I guess it was an out route that I don't have right now. Those need to have a lot of velocity on them if you want to get them there in time, and it didn't have that. It was easily picked off. But right here, I mean, this is a 40-something yard pass down the field. Fitz just can't throw this ball with consistently.
No.
You know, he's going to probably – if Fitz throws this pass, Robbie Anderson's probably going to have to slow up his route, and he's not going to hit him in stride, and the defensive back could potentially pick it off or deflect it. But, you know, Petty does have that. Now,
yeah, he does. Oh, real quick, Kyle Orton is a 4th-round pick out of Purdue. Now, just look at his stat line for his career. 101 touchdowns, 69 interceptions, over 18,000 yards passing, 81.2 QBR. That's not bad. And you would love that out of Bryce Petty if you had 101 touchdowns to 69 interceptions, over 18,000 yards. I'm not saying, but they're both 4th-round picks. But I'm saying that's probably what his ceiling is like a Kyle Orton.
Okay, interesting. Speaking of Kyle Orton, the Jets' number 1 wide receiver, who's had a love affair with Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's had a love affair with Jay Cutler, said this past offseason, maybe it was 2 off seasons ago, I'm not entirely sure, best quarterback he's ever played with, he said, Kyle Orton.
I tell you right now, Kyle, everyone, he only played on the Bills for what? A couple of games. I mean, it wasn't a full season. And
the Jets look silly, that's for sure.
Well, I'll tell you this right now. Every Bills player that played with Kyle Orton absolutely loved him. They loved him.
He's Uncle Rico. What do you expect?
I'm just saying that, you know. but it's great that let me tell you, the biggest thing of a quarterback is they want to go to if a team wants to go to battle for you. Like I said, no one was upset when Geno got his jaw broken. But if Tom Brady gets shoved the wrong way, you best believe it that you're going to have LeGarrette Blount in your face, and you're going to have Shaq Mason and all those other guys coming up to you.
Yeah. Hey, Gary, do you mind if I spend a moment clarifying something that happened? I don't know if you saw this on Twitter, but I was listening to the Rock Pile Report in their latest episode, and Drew was complaining. He was venting about, who called the Wildcat, who was responsible for the Wildcat call to begin the second half out in Oakland. So I tweeted at Rock Pile Report, the Buffalo Bills podcast, and I said that there's no doubt about it, Rex Ryan was responsible for having the Wildcat implemented. I said something to that effect. And I gave reasoning behind it. I said Rex has used it frequently under 3 different offensive coordinators from his time with the Jets. And he's also wanted to implement it with his time with the Bills. And then Ron Caniff of Locked On Dolphins, he went out and he was probably, obviously he's been very friendly to me. He's come on this show. But I think he was, trying to kind of make a mockery out of me in a sense to, maybe appease his following of Miami Dolphins fan. He said, "What? Smoke crack much? Sperano in 08, Game 3 at New England, brother." So then I went on to clarify, Ron, I'm not giving credit to Rex for inventing or even making the Wildcat famous. This is in reference to what was said on the Rock Pile Report. When Drew asked who was responsible for calling it or having it be run in the second half against Oakland. So that was my response to him. Made it very clear. Talking about a Buffalo Bills podcast. And let's be honest, Gary, does he really think I'm that stupid? Gary, any Joe Schmo, average run-of-the-mill NFL fan, you go and watch one of those NFL top 10 shows, you're going to talk about, the top 10 inventions of the decade. They talk about the Wildcat offense, and you're going to talk about how it was unveiled against Belichick and how Ronnie Brown went off. Anyone has seen those highlights. Anyone knows that you attribute that to the 2008 Miami Dolphins, and that's how they made it to the playoffs. It wasn't on Chad Pennington's arm. Chad Pennington had no arm at that point in time. It was that offense that everyone was still trying to figure out. I know that, Ron. I'm not a buffoon.
Well, what was his response?
Here's what his response is. Sorry, man. Even taken out of context, this text is just incorrect. Say what you want about what you were referring to. In fact, I'm pretty sure there's audio of Rex stating that he thought the Wildcat was crap and gimmicky ahead of a Finns matchup. If I recall, he even called the Wildcat, quote, disrespectful. So just don't get your tweet regardless of the content. So then I responded back to him, to which he had no answer. I would have appreciated an apology or something, but I didn't get it. I said, why don't you listen to the episode that I'm referring to before you try to call me out on this? This was in reference to why the Bills used it against the Raiders and Capitals. And then I said, and yeah, Rex may have said that in 2009, but the fact is, to quote Drew Gear, that since then, on many occasions, when asked about why he likes it, talking about the Wildcat, he said that it makes it tough for a defense to prepare for it. And then I cited an article in my tweet about when Rex Ryan was the coach of the Jets back in 2014 when they had Michael Vick and they were running the Wildcat with Michael Vick. And you could see the quotes in there about how Rex Ryan says that it's tough to make a defense to prepare for it. And Rex Ryan, he's coming at it. He's been coming at it for years from a defensive coordinator standpoint. He said, I know that I had a tough time stopping that as a defensive coordinator, and it's just one more thing for a defense to prepare for. So if I can make a defense prepare for that one other thing, gosh darn it, I'm going to do it. So, Ron, I'm not an idiot, right? And I would have appreciated an apology on that.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle, it's either Ron apologized to, or we get Nico Grimes to call into his show again. I mean, that's the ultimatum we're giving him right now, because I know he don't want that.
That's pretty good, man. By the way, for those of you that don't know what Gary's referring to, this past summer, Ron and Miko have had, probably since last football season, the 2015 season, they've had back and forths on Twitter.
One of the best rivalries, by the way.
It is pretty good. And, So Miko was constantly, talking crap about Ron, and Ron, she actually had Ron blocked, so Ron didn't even know that he was talking crap about her. So some people were screenshotting Ron, her tweets and then sending them to Ron, and then Ron had responded, and then those people were screenshotting that and sending it back to her. So then she unblocked him, and then they went back and forth again, and eventually it just came to a point where he said, "Why don't you come on my show?" So we stopped doing this through Twitter. And they had a shout fest, and she
called his bluff. She came on.
She called his bluff. She came on. It was a shout fest. There was lots of derogatory names said, mostly from her. And eventually she did the mic drop and hung up the phone.
Very, very classy woman, Kyle.
Yes. Classy indeed, to say the least.
To say the least.
We actually brought her up.
I got, Ron's co-host, he didn't do a good job of having his back on that. We gotta listen to that one more time, you and I again.
Maybe listen to that one together. That would be Vero Delfino, who is actually no longer Ron's co-host. For the past couple months, Ron's been doing Locked On Dolphins, which is a 5-day-a-week podcast. They release an episode every day of the work week for you.
Wow.
So since he's been doing that, he no longer has Vero as his regular co-host. But anyway, that's that. I got that off my chest. I'm
glad, and I hope Ron does give you an apology because he's wrong, 2,000%.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that, brother. I don't think he listens to our show, though. Maybe he does. I'm not totally sure. He does retweet our stuff every now and then. So, Ron, I definitely appreciate when you do that. No, there's really no hard feelings here, but I had to say my piece.
Make it right, Ron. Yeah. Make it right. All right.
Twitter poll: 85% of people.
Kyle, we gotta get Nick Baby Love on again on him. I mean, that's the next step. We gotta sick Nick Baby Love on him.
Oh, he doesn't want that.
No one wants that.
Gary, you know what's crazy too? He said Bills fans very emotional and reactionary. Twitter handle that you actually referred me to however many months ago, Yards Per Pass, has a big Twitter following, did a Twitter poll. Who would you rather have start, Cardale Jones or Tyrod Taylor? Or I can't even remember exactly what the poll was. I'll try to pull it up word for word.
Well, who was the winner? You know that much at least.
Well, it was Cardale Jones by a landslide, 85%, Gary, and 1,005 people voted on that poll.
I can tell you this right now. The Bills still have a chance, very, 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 very slim chance, but still they're alive this week, and they got to take care of business. And Rex was very open. I believe he said that, until we're virtually eliminated, we're not going to play any young players. So I'm in the same boat as Rex. Is there, like Lloyd Christmas said in Dumb and Dumber, so you're saying there's a chance. We got to get that sound clip, by the way, Kyle.
I mean, I do have it on our old, software that we use to host the show, so I can definitely put that.
But either way, like I said, I wouldn't want to put Cardale in, maybe against Miami and the Jets. But Kyle, let's be honest. I want to see the Bills beat up on the Dolphins, the Matt Moore-led Dolphins, and the Bryce Petty-led New York Jets. So it would be funny, though. Who would have thought the last couple games of the year, Bryce Petty, Matt Moore, and maybe possibly Cardale Jones would be all starting those games.
Oh, my gosh. Who would have thought? I'm trying to pull up that poll on here right now, and maybe it only pops up on the mobile version of Twitter. Let me try to pull that up really quick, and then we got to get into picks, Gary. Yeah. And I hope that you have all the games in front of you right now, because I sure as heck don't for some reason. It's been quite a day for me. Oh, here we go.
You got it up?
Yeah, I'm about to put up 1 second. Here we go. It's Monday, so it's time to play You Are Doug Whaley. You have a tiny decision about your QB to make this offseason. What is your choice? Exercise extension or bye-bye Tyrod? 85% of people, 1,005 votes, said bye-bye Tyrod. Now, do keep in mind that this is right after a tough loss, which in effect ended your playoff hopes. If you win this game, there's still a lot of hope left in the tank. But you lose this game, oh, man, you're crushed. And you saw Le'Veon Bell go off. against Rex-minded, defensive-minded coach for almost 300 total yards. You have reason to be really angry and upset with your team. You're seeing all these bad reports about your team come out. Coach might be fired. I figure all that stuff factors into people voting a certain way. But that's still a crazy amount of people saying bye-bye Tyrod, which I just think is plain stupidity. And Travis Wingfield, a Dolphins fan, he actually agreed with me when he was on earlier, Gary.
Yeah. Well, first of all, none of these polls should ever be done right after a loss. I think the people – because even I was like – I turned off the game early. I rarely ever do that. I turned the game off because I was so disgusted. And I said, I'm done with this team. Those are the words that came out of my mouth. But then Monday, you're still a little salty about it. Tuesday, you start coming around to it. Today, this afternoon, I totally forgot, moved on to the next week. These polls are never a good time to do it right after a loss.
Yeah, maybe after the season's over, give it a week or two after the season's over and you've had time to kind of recover a little bit, look at the grand scope of things. Maybe that's a bit of a better time to do it. But, still. People, if you really think Cardale Jones, did you watch Cardale Jones in the summer? Really? I mean, did you see how inaccurate he was? Did you go to a training camp practice and did you see him sailing passes, Christian Hackenberg and people over the top? I mean, come on. But that, I think, listen, there's so much to talk about. There always is. But we're going to move on. We're going to get into picks for this week, Gary. And what's our first game on the docket?
First game on the docket, and we're going to go we're going to go to the easiest one. We have Cleveland at Buffalo.
Cleveland at Buffalo. Listen, Gary, the streak continues for the Cleveland Browns. They dropped to 0-13, and they might be matching the 2008 or 2007 Detroit Lions that went 0-16. They might be joining them as the only 0-16 team.
Yeah, I'm gonna quote a once famous poet by the name of Adam Pac-Man Jones. on Terrell Pryor, I'm gonna say it on the whole organization. Cleveland, garbage.
That was funny. He started looking in the garbage can. He's like, "You find him in here?"
Yeah. So that's what I'm gonna say, and I think the Bills are gonna win 28-14.
28-14. And Gary, can you tell us briefly why the Buffalo Bills will win?
They just outmatch them talent-wise. They're just – I'm not going to say they're – I like Hugh Jackson as a coach, but I think the Bills just have way more talent. It's at home. Cleveland Browns are not a good road team. They're not a good home team. They're not a good team. So Adam Pac-Man Jones, Cleveland, garbage.
Yeah, I hear you totally on that one. And Gary, I'd be remiss if I didn't pull up that clip after you mentioned it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I find that, and Adam Jones, he's an interesting dude. So apparently he's a guy who kind of changed around his life a little bit. He's always been a fiery guy. Gary, I don't know. Actually, I don't think you went to this Rutgers game with me way back when.
No, I think it was you and Dad. Didn't you and Dad?
I went with Dad back in middle school. And it was West Virginia versus Rutgers. And we used to go to the Rutgers games when they used to play the good teams. And West Virginia was one of the better teams on their schedule back then. The Big East used to suck. And Adam Jones, he was still in college at West Virginia at that point. He had like a couple interceptions. He ended up getting tossed out of that game. And I remember him cursing off fans and stuff. And then he brought that same type of demeanor into the NFL with him. And shoot, man, I mean, it seems like every now and then he kind of reverts back to it a little bit.
He was just calling a spade, Kyle, as we like to say.
I need to talk about it, Adam. What did that start with for you, Terrell? Garbage. Oh, there you go. Get him out of there. You see him in there? Okay. Right there. You better find him somebody to play with. So they're saying basically he could garbage. Garbage.
Right, eventually, the media is going to have to get in here and tell, like.
I'm happy we won. All right, cool. Terrell Pryor, garbage.
All right, so he let him know. Gary, I don't think Terrell Pryor is garbage. I don't know about.
I don't either, but Terrell's only as good as what he's working with too, Kyle.
Yeah. And you want to speak about, many a player have worked Darrelle Revis this year, Gary, but Terrell Pryor was one of the worst. And people are saying, oh, well, Revis shut him out in the second half. No, Terrell Pryor actually dropped some passes. And when I actually just finished up my All-22 film review of the Cleveland Browns and the New York Jets, and the whole catalog, or if you want to call it a catalog, is posted on Twitter in a Twitter moment that I did. And there's just so many plays where Pryor, he's just beating up on Revis. Revis is, playing really far off because he doesn't want to get beat deep. And, Pryor just has the easy curl comeback, first down. Pryor's beating him deep. I mean, he just absolutely worked, and Pryor catches the short pass, and Revis can't tackle him. It was bad, but Terrell Pryor has done that to many people this year. He's a nice young receiver, converted quarterback. But anyway, let's move on to the next game, Gary.
All right, next one, Kyle. And you know what? I was going to choose, but this is a heavyweight fight, so we're going to say that for last. So we're going to do the division rival between the Jets and the Dolphins. That game is at MetLife.
Game at MetLife Stadium.
Saturday game.
Saturday night football. They always do that this time of year once college football is over with. Matt Moore taking on Bryce Petty. Who would have thought at the beginning of the season that we would be seeing this matchup? I sure as heck didn't foresee it. But lo and behold, that's what we have. And you know what, Gary? I just think that the Dolphins are the better team. And even though I don't think Matt Moore is good, I think he's a significant step down from Ryan Tannehill. I still like the Miami Dolphins. I think that by and large, their defense has played pretty darn well this year. And I think that Bryce Petty's going to struggle against them. They're going to play, some standard zone defense. And, Bryce Petty, can you beat the coverage? Can you throw into tight windows? Can you throw timely passes with velocity into those tight windows? Because that's how you beat that. I don't see Bryce Petty being able to do it with consistency. And Bilal Powell, actually, one of his worst games this season was against the Dolphins. Bilal Powell's had plenty, 5+ yard runs this year where he just breaks out, looked like he was shot out against the cannon. He was met at the line of scrimmage many times against the Dolphins when they played them a couple weeks ago. So I think the Dolphins will slow down the Jets' running game. I think Matt Forte is out with a knee injury. And I like the Dolphins in this game by the score of, I'll go 20-13.
I'm actually choosing the opposite end of the spectrum. I don't think Matt Moore's a good quarterback, Kyle. I mean, there's 2 years where Matt Moore was a street free agent, and the only team going after his services was the Miami Dolphins. So, I forget what program I was watching, but they were making it seem like Matt Moore was this great backup quarterback, and I just don't think so. That game they're actually predicting is going to be snow and rain mix, so it's going to be a very miserable day for those beautiful Miami weather players down there. I think the Jets are going to pull it off, and like I said, that's not a guarantee. I'm not hating on the Dolphins. I just see pretty much what I see that happened to them a couple years ago when they were going to make a playoff push and then they choked. And there is even more reason with Matt Moore behind the helm for them to choke. So I see the Jets winning this in a cold, miserable, wet, low-scoring game. I'm going to predict 10-7.
There you go, Dolphins listeners. There's your villain of the show, Mr. Gary Smith.
Let's hear it. But like I said, prove me wrong. That's what I'm saying. I told them the Baltimore game, let's see you go up against a tough run defense and see what you do. And they completely got their butts whooped. I predicted them to win against Arizona, which they did. They handled business home. But here's where I said the bottom falls, that they don't play well in December and they don't play well against teams in the Northeast. You lost to Baltimore.
Got your butt kicked.
Yeah, it wasn't close. Now you got the Jets and you got the Bills, and let's see what happens.
We'll see what happens. And if, the weather forecast that you just, outlaid for us, if that holds true, then that will be the second week in a row that Miami played in absolutely miserable conditions. This past game against the Arizona Cardinals, it was a torrential downpour. And the Cardinals are another team. It's obviously very hot in Arizona, but they play in a dome. They were not used to that weather either. And although Miami made their fair share of mistakes, Arizona made more in that game.
That was a sloppy game to watch, Kyle.
Really sloppy game, no doubt about it. To your point, you made one other really interesting point that I wanted to touch on, but I cannot remember the point. Unless I do remember it, we'll move on and we'll talk about
Matt Moore.
Well, I don't know if it was about Matt Moore per se. I do know that Matt Moore ended the Jets' very, very, very little playoff hopes that they had in the 2011 season. The Jets would have went 9-7 had they beat the lowly Miami Dolphins, who only had 5 wins at that point. Matt Moore went out and smoked them. That was the famous Santonio Holmes game where, he's shouting at players in the huddle. And, Jets beat reporter Rich Cimini was saying that just after his first full season, or if you don't count 2010 because he missed 4 games because of the suspension that he was on, but his first full season under his new contract with the Jets, Rich Cimini believed that Santonio Holmes was on his way out the door after that point. Now, obviously, he played longer than that, but yeah, it was total dysfunction for the Jets, and Matt Moore was the guy that ended their playoff hopes that year. If the Dolphins do beat the Jets this weekend, it will be their first time sweeping the Jets since 2009, Rex Ryan's first year as Jets head coach. All the following years, 2010 up through 2014, the Dolphins and the Jets split. And then obviously last year, 2015, Todd Bowles and the New York Jets swept the Dolphins, crushing them in both matchups. Let's move on to the Patriots, Gary.
Patriots are playing one and only. They're bitter rivals, Kyle. Can we say the Denver Broncos, Kyle?
They are definitely bitter rivals. Nick Baby Love hates the Denver Broncos. Patriots Nation hates the Denver Broncos. Brady has a losing record, definitely in Denver against the Broncos. And I wonder if he's got a losing record in total against the Denver Broncos. I'm not so sure about the last fact. Someone can go and fact check me on that one. But it's not been pretty when the Patriots go to Denver.
Yeah, and this game's up in Mile High, like you mentioned. Tom Brady, he still looks like a really good quarterback. I'd say he's 1 or 2. Aaron Rodgers playing some pretty good football. Derek Carr, but you can't mention those 2 guys without mentioning Tom Brady. And though he's out without probably the most dangerous weapon in the NFL, and Rob Gronkowski, that Denver team cannot move the football, Kyle, at all with Trevor Siemian. And their running game is absent. That was one thing they benefit from last year. They had a really good running game. That is not existent. And if you're going to have any success against –
They had a good running game down the stretch. They were actually bad for the majority of the early –
what I'm trying to get is that is not even existent this season.
Yeah.
So if you're going to win against Tom Brady and the New England Patriots, the key is to keeping the ball out of number 12's hand. And how do you do that? You sustain long drives. And by running the ball mostly, they're not going to be able to do any of that. And Denver's chance of being in the playoffs is going to dwindle down because they're probably going to lose this game. And in fact, I'm predicting them to lose by the score of 30-14.
Yeah. And you know what? Another thing about the Denver Broncos, their defense is not as good as last year. Chris Harris, is he even playing in this game, Gary? Didn't he?
I think he's out, especially that Harry Douglas had a nice little –
Yeah, and Talib was not too happy about that. He said –
Rightfully so,
Yeah, he said something like, we have the same agent, and next time I see him in Atlanta, I'm going to beat his you-know-what type of deal. I mean, and Chris Harris, he's a damn good defender. You can move him to the outside, and he's decently effective there, but he's really good when you put him in the slot. And he's a guy that can cover those shifty slot receivers, Julian Edelman. Obviously, Amendola is not playing, but the likes of him when he is playing, Malcolm Mitchell, even though they spread him to the outside. Chris Hogan, if you want to move him inside, he's versatile. That's your guy to cover those types of dudes. But he's not going to be there. But also, Gary, another thing is Denver came fast and crazy from the edges last year. They took advantage of not having Nate Solder. Sebastian, I don't know if he missed that game.
Ulmer was playing that left tackle at that point.
Yeah, okay. So taking advantage of those matchups. But, Gary, they don't have the interior pressure that they had last year. And New England, you can beat them on the interior. And we've said many a time before that Brady doesn't like that interior pressure. You move him off his spot. He seems to deal well with outside pressure better than he does with stuff right in his face. And with New England, I think David Andrews is hot garbage. Literally, every all-22 tape I put on, I'm picking out a couple plays where Andrews is just getting demolished. Guys are blowing by him like it's nothing.
Right.
That's happening every week. Shaq Mason. Shaq Mason, he's a pretty good run blocker, but he's no pass blocker.
No.
And Joe Thuney's a rookie, Gary.
Yeah, you just pointed out that their line, though better than last year, and it has to do with the coaching. Skarnecki's done wonders. But the talent, Kyle, is simply not there. Shaq Mason, it's funny. Last year, Shaq Mason and Trey Jackson, they would rotate. Trey Jackson was the much more polished pass blocker, and Shaq Mason was a lot better run blocker than Trey Jackson. So they were almost showing their hand last year. And same thing goes here. I mean, they have Shaq Mason in there as a full-time starter, but Kyle, he is not a good pass blocker at all. He is not whatsoever. Short arms. He's just not. He's a short, squatty guy. He doesn't have a powerful punch. Like you said, Andrews, Kyle, not the best center in the league. He might actually be a downgrade over Stork. Sad for you to say that. Yeah, you look up plays like that where he barely lays a hand on Darius, and he's on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing plays like that all the time from David Andrews.
Yeah, and not only that, Kyle, look at to his left, Nate Solder. Same move. I mean, he just whiffs on Kyle Williams, makes him look like a fool.
Yeah, that line is not good, but my point is why I bring all this up is Denver doesn't have Malik Jackson anymore. And Malik Jackson just signed a big free agent contract with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he's still playing pretty darn good. Is he living up to expectations? I mean, maybe that's a legitimate question, but he's still damn good. And you best believe that if money, throw money aside, the Denver Broncos wish that they had him right now. Gary, is their boy that they elected to re-sign instead of him, the white boy, I can't remember his name.
You don't know.
Denver Broncos guy. They gave him a big contract in the offseason.
Derek Wolfe.
Derek Wolfe. Is he healthy?
Yeah, but he's been in and out of the lineup all year. How healthy is he? I don't know. But make no bones about it, Kyle. They got a much better value out of Derek Wolfe than what Malik Jackson had signed for. I mean, Derek Wolfe signed for peanuts compared to peanuts.
It was kind of foolish. Maybe he was scared that he was going to get hurt. But man, oh man, if he just waited like a month or whatever,
no doubt about it. That guy could ball. He obviously does a lot better when he's playing alongside someone who's on the same level as him. The guy that picked up from Houston, Jarrett Creeker or something like that.
Jarrett Crick.
Yeah, he's not. I've seen that guy get bullied way too much. So.
That's a Horace Hawk favorite. Horace likes him.
Yeah, he's not. He's not starting caliber. He's a good rotational guy, but he's not a starter. So he's no Malik Jackson. But obviously, Derek Wolfe benefits from someone who's pretty much similar caliber to who he is. But he's been in and out of the lineup all year. You're right, Kyle. They are missing that inside push that they had last year. They still got those edge guys, but DeMarcus Ware's been banged up. They're getting some good productivity from Shane Ray, their former first-round pick. But this Denver team is definitely not the same team that we saw last year as far as on the defensive side.
Yeah, I like the Patriots in this one, 28-14.
And there you have it. I mean, Kyle, is New England going to be the best team in the AFC?
They're the best team in the NFL, Gary. And, I know there was like a week or two where you said Minnesota could be running with them. But I think that we've been pretty consistent from the beginning in saying that the Patriots are the best.
I still believe, Kyle, I said this a couple weeks ago, Kansas City is their biggest threat.
And I think I agree with you there. I really do. I don't think it's Oakland. They don't have much of a defense to really say. And we were arguing with Melvin about this because Melvin disagreed with us. I think Melvin thought that they were the least threat in the AFC West, whereas we think they are the biggest. But, yeah, I'm right with you on that one. But still, I think New England's the best team in the league, as you just said.
Yeah, and make no bones about it, Kyle. The Patriots need to win this game bad because if they don't, they run the risk of Kansas City or another team possibly taking that number one spot from them, and they would not fare well on the road with Kansas City or Oakland, I believe, as far as going out and traveling. They're just a better home team through and through, so they need to win here, and they've got to make sure they beat Miami too.
Yes. And we had said when Tyson is a New England Patriots fan and YouTuber and filmmaker, he was saying that he wants absolutely no part of going to Kansas City. So he wants to lock up the 1 seed for that reason. Okay, I think that's going to do it for this show. Gary, did you give your score out for the game?
Yeah, I said 30-14.
Yeah, you did. Okay.
You subtracted 2 points and gave your score.
Okay, fair enough. By the way, Gary and I being brothers, we obviously have a long history with one another, which our listeners don't necessarily have that. So there's a lot of inside jokes that we'll say from time to time. Gary had mentioned a Flip McGuan reference a little bit earlier, and you guys are probably wondering, who the hell is Flip McGuan? Flip McGuan is our former high school football coach who I actually have been trying to contact recently. I don't know if he got a new phone number or whatever, but I'd actually like to get him on the show because he's actually a big New England Patriots fan. He's from the Boston, Massachusetts area. Gary used to get on him I remember Gary when the Buffalo Bills beat them in the 2003 season, shut him out week 1. You were all over him.
Oh, I was.
Him. And then
I tell you right now, if I could go back in time, take a time machine, I wish I would never say anything because, boy, have I been made a fool since then.
Oh, man. And then they returned the Bills the favor. I think they swept. They beat them by the same exact score. Was it 31-0 as well? And then they went on and they won in dramatic fashion in the Super Bowl. That was the Super Bowl where they beat, was it the Panthers?
Yeah.
That was when they beat the Panthers, yeah.
And he never let me forget that. I'm telling you, to this day.
Yeah. But he's a good guy, and he was kind of like a hard-nosed coach in a way, and he really believed in no single player is bigger than the team. I don't care how talented you are, I'll ship you out of here. And part of me wonders how much of that did he get from Bill Belichick and watching Belichick throughout the years and thinking that that's how a coach should run a program. So I kind of want to pick his brain with that and the whole Jamie Collins deal. So hopefully we can get him on in the next couple weeks. But yeah, that goes for our inside jokes. Guys, if you ever wonder, what are they talking about when they mention this? Get at us on Twitter, AFC East Bros for me, AFC_EastBro Gary for Gary. Email the show, afceastbros@gmail.com. You might notice that we've been talking about plays. We just brought up how Marcel Darius was owning David Andrews and Kyle Williams was owning Nate Solder. Well, we were watching a play when we did that. That means that we're on YouTube as well. So if you go to the AFC East Bros YouTube channel, you can also see both Gary and I's pretty faces as well as some video that we pull up from time to time. We'll pull up tweets. We'll pull up pictures every now and then. It's definitely a different element to the show that we'd appreciate if you guys subscribed on YouTube. You want to call into the show, the information should be in the description of this podcast as well as the YouTube description, as well as my Twitter description. We'd appreciate if you can give us a 5-star rate and review on iTunes. Again, subscribe to the channel. And Gary, am I missing anything?
Not a thing, Kyle. You're doing excellent. Keep going on if you have any more to say.
It's totally just coming right off the top of my head, but we appreciate you guys. The numbers seem to grow week in, week out. We're having a lot of fun with it, and we want to keep growing it. So if you guys can support us in whatever way possible, we'd appreciate that. And we'll let you know more ways that you can do that in the future. And if you can keep Gary's dog Outlaw in your thoughts and prayers, we'd appreciate that as well.
Appreciate that, guys. Hey, Kyle, we have to definitely give the fans a few more live shows. We're going to definitely make the conscious
Facebook Lives or
Facebook Lives, you and I together. So
yeah, we should do that. And I'm also looking forward to when we did the NFL draft last year, the first round live. That was pretty fun.
Yeah.
And I think we could do that this year. I don't even know if you'd want to do rounds 2 and 3. Food for thought if we'd want to do that. But I also think that we could we have the technology now to actually, stream in some of the audio of the draft itself too. So anyway, food for thought, but we're constantly thinking of ways that we can bring you guys better content. But yes, I agree with you 100%. about the Facebook Live, Gary. Maybe we could do it while we're having a workout session in your home gym or something, but we'll see.
Let's get to it.
All right, guys, that's going to do it. Take care.